New episode of the Brickyard Live Show. We are coming to you live from Austin and Phoenix on a Tuesday night after week 14 of the NFL season, which saw so many big games, so many big storylines to break down here. And then also, you've been crushing it all season long with your bets. If you've been following along, our picks have been accurate. We've been the most accurate independent show on YouTube, pretty much nailing every major storyline here and being more accurate than the media. And you just cashed out a 5-leg parlay. Was it $130 to make 1,000?
150 to make 1,000. So I literally hit $1,000 parlay. We called, and this was on the show. So those who want to make money, watch our show. But
Watch it.
we called the Saints at +8.5, the Jags at +1.5, the Raiders at +7.5, thanks to Vegas, +3.5 Texans, and +3.5 Chargers. We hit all of those plays, all on a line, all on a rope, in our straight bets, in our parlays, in our round robins, and we cashed out. So if you like making money, consider watching the show and following our bets.
Yeah, also, if you just like football and you want the most accurate analysis and you want to know what's going to happen, also watch the show. Make sure you subscribe, smash the like button. I saw that parlay you sent me, and then I literally laughed out loud when I saw the Raiders trot out the field goal unit on there. And then Pete Carroll was like, "We were just trying to argue for more time to be put on the clock so we had a chance to get the ball back and have a Hail Mary." I'm like, wait a minute. Even if they put more time on the clock, you still wouldn't have time to recover an onside kick. That would be over. You'd have to recover the onside kick, do a bunch of weird laterals, and hope you can get into the end zone that way. But there's no way you're actually going to get the ball back. And then I see, oh, a 7.5-point spread. They're down 10, and then they kick the field goal. Very suspicious from the Raiders. We also had the pick last week that we pointed out was Shador Sanders, who had over of 150 yards, only went to 149. Also predicted that one as well. And then I literally laughed out loud when I saw them kick the field goal. I'm like, you just can't make this shit up at this point. It's just right in your face. It's obvious, and they're just laughing at you. And that's why, like, it can be, if you watch a show like this, pretty easy to just see these types of things coming. You start to build the full picture, not only just with the NFL season, the story as it goes along and it unfolds, how it's going to happen, but also gambling. Like, it's just easy to see some of these things coming. And then once you've been watching it for long enough, once you study and follow the money, then it's pretty easy to make some of these bets here. And you played them
Yeah.
like pretty safely because you set it up. Explain what the round robin is to some of our viewers.
Yeah. So the way that I bet it is that if I'm going to do a 5-leg parlay, I do it in a round robin sense. And what it is it essentially builds you micro little parlays. So, like for this 5-leg parlay, it's going to cash if 1 in 5 hits and 2 in 4 hits and 3 in 4 hit. So essentially, there are all these little micro 2-leg, 3-leg, 4-leg, and 5-leg parlays. And then I also bet the straight bet so that when that cashes, I make money, some of my money back, and then put it in a full 5-leg parlay, all with the same amount of units, whatever you're comfortable with gambling with. But what happens is when you do it that way, then when the first bet hits, you're going to clear that because you hit your straight bet. With the 2 legs, you're going to get your money back for that round robin. And then with 3, you have all these different combinations cash. So essentially, if you get 3 of the 5 parlays right, you're making your money back. And then anything on top of that, like this weekend when I made all of it back and then some, you end up cashing on your straight bet, your parlay, and your round robins on all of the bets, making you literally thousands of dollars. So, also, like my strategy when I bet is I wanted to have a hook. Like this, you see the Chargers and Texans bet was +3.5. It's because if they lose by a field goal, which happens all the time in the NFL, you still cash. Or with the Raiders at +7.5, typically if somebody loses by a touchdown, it'll be right around that score. So you do it right around the 3.5 or the 7.5, then you're going to cover more often than not, even if your team loses. So that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, no, definitely a good way to put it. Definitely dropping a lot of knowledge there. And, you can just see some of these things coming sometimes at a great upset pick on Thursday night where I just thought, everyone's talking about the Cowboys now. Now, whenever the Cowboys are kind of going up, whenever their stock is starting to rise, that's typically when they fall. And then what happened on Thursday night? Exactly that. And we'll break that game down later. But like some of these things are pretty easy if you just have been watching the NFL for a long time, and I've been watching the NFL since I was 9, and I pretty much watched every single game up until then. So you just start to know things. So if you want to know things, also,
Plus, it's also good to know like the Cowboys, most of the money was on the Cowboys in that game to
yeah,
cover that 3-point spread. So if you fade the public, who makes money when the public loses? Vegas. Who always makes their money? Vegas. So just follow Vegas, and chances are you're going to make your money.
yeah.
So
Follow the house. The house always wins. So if you bet with the house, you're always gonna win. It's the same thing with if you're talking about maybe an investment where you had the Pelosi tracker. Like, okay,
same
if
thing.
Nancy Pelosi, or to be fair, Dan Crenshaw is so we get both sides in there, so we're not biased or partisan.
Unity.
Is just buying into a company. You're like, oh well, they outperform the S&P 500 and the experts here like Warren Buffett, and they have insider information. They make illegal insider trades. So if you just kind of follow the money there, it's like same type of concept.
It's literally, yeah. Honestly, that's a good comp because those people have information that we don't have. Vegas knows something we don't. And the people who make the lines do it to an exact science. And if we see 90% of the money on one side, chances are not only the NFL, who is in conjunction with the Vegas, but Vegas is going to want that to go the other way. So that's most of these bets that are picked here are from not my opinion on who's going to win this game, but on who does Vegas want to win this game. And that's why I picked it that
Especially
way.
now that ESPN has a stake in the NFL and they have their own betting app, like, uh,
Yeah.
like
You remember, I think it was the NBA draft when they're like, oh, so and so person is definitely going number 2. Bet this number 2. I think it was Shams. And then, or Shams. And then ultimately, it was just false information that all these people bet all this money on just for it to be a lie. Like the rumor, it was just a rumor and it wasn't a fact. I think it was either
yeah,
the NBA or NFL draft.
it was probably Shams because Shams just lies for LeBron James and he's in whatever weird mafia LeBron James has going on, and he just constantly puts out misinformation in general. So that's not surprising there. But yeah, great week for us. We're gonna give our worst top fives and bottom top fives, recap everything, break down the playoff picture, how it's going right now. But we do our jersey swap every single year. I haven't gotten mine in yet, but you have received yours, so you can wear it for the rest of the show here. Go ahead and open up that bad boy.
So I will say for the viewers, I didn't see the jersey, but I got a package from Fanatics. I'm like, I think this is Marcus's gift. I don't know. And then I saw the very top little like collar part. I'm like, okay, this is probably his jersey. I'm not going to open this until the show. So you see that
Okay.
it's a little punctured. I had my roommate open it, but I got this partially opened. Tossing the
He
plastic
did this
aside.
last year too.
We do this. We've done this for 4 years in a row now. So package is open. Oh shit! I think I know. Is this? Oh, H Town. Will Anderson. Let's fucking go. Oh, let's fucking go. Little
I
Will
love
Anderson
the H
action.
Town jerseys.
These are sick. All right. Sorry, the weekend. We're going. We're going to.
Sorry,
We're
Abel.
going to Houston. Sorry, Houston. We have a problem.
Problems
Oh yeah.
Will Anderson Jr.
Well, I won't tell you who your player is, but I will say that your player is on offense.
It's on offense. Okay. Show the side of that sleeve there. What is
Oh,
oh, the blue Texan. That's
oh,
fire.
Anderson. I feel like
Bro's
typically
gonna
when you
wear
give
that
me
to
a
the gym in the
defensive,
morning and then move weight.
actually yes, no, because you got me Miles Garrett a few years ago, and if I want to look beefy, I put that on. It's my lucky
I
jersey.
think Miles Garrett you bought on your own just when they were on sale because I bought the Tyreek Hill one, then you bought the Miles Garrett one on your own.
Who did you get me that year? I know you got me Maurice Jones-Drew one year,
Yeah.
and I have them all in my. You got me OJ last year, which is crazy. That jersey got me in trouble in Old Town Scottsdale.
May have been it. It may have been Jalen Hurts, maybe.
I got Jalen Hurts. I got you. I know I got you. I think Joe Burrow, and
Yeah,
then
Joe
last year
Burrow,
I got you
CJ
Aaron
Stroud,
Hernandez. Yeah,
Percy Harvin.
yeah. This year it's the good guys. Although Will Anderson is a bad man, so I don't know if he. I think he fits because the Texans. Everybody loves the Texans today, but
Yeah.
your guy is unanimously loved by all. I'll say that, but I won't tell you who
Love
it
by
is or
all.
what position. Everybody loves this
Who
guy.
are 5 teams that aren't loved by all?
Okay, so first, before I tell you the 5 teams that are not loved by all, let me tell you a few that have graduated from this infamous list. On this list here, who have graduated, we have the Raiders for hitting the spread, cashing the 5-leg parlay. Thank you, Raiders, for supporting my gambling addiction and making Dave Portnoy cry. We love to see it. Raiders, you are exonerated from this list for at least another week. The
They made me
Titans.
money.
They made me money, therefore they are in our good circle. They might be on the best top 5. We don't know. And then 2 teams that I've said are so bad that I don't even make fun of them on the worst top 5. The Titans beat the Browns. The last few weeks I've said they're so bad I can't even make fun of them. Well, now we can talk about how great they are later in the show. They beat the Browns. And the Saints, another team that we say are so bad we can't even talk about them. They beat the Buccaneers and they win. And then the team that was literally number 1 on the worst top 5 last week has graduated. Insert Kanye West graduation. Good morning. You graduate when you make it up out of these streets. The Vikings beat the Commanders 31-0. So they are not on this list whatsoever. Well, let's talk about a few teams that are actually bad teams. Teams that are so bad that I'm not even going to make fun of them this week. I'm going to put the Jets, the Cardinals, and the Chiefs on this list. They're so bad I can't make fun of them. It's just not fair. So these teams, maybe the Chiefs are on this list for some reason or another, but they're so bad I can't make fun of them. Jets, Cardinals, it's like I'm punching a baby. It's not fun. At number 4, talk about a dead corpse of a franchise. The Atlanta Falcons. You're rolling out Kirk Cousins, 37-year-old Kirk Cousins, coming off of a torn ACL, brought him back from the dead, removing him from Hall of Fame consideration, get absolutely obliterated by the Seahawks. Raheem Morris, not the guy. Bijan Robinson, where was he? We don't know. Falcons, they have all these weapons. Kyle Pitts, we love him. The future of the NFL, apparently, not so much. Falcons, they are at number 4. At number 3, a team that I, going into last week, said, no, they can beat the Lions, surely. They've played well defensively the last few weeks. Dak Prescott's playing good. Javonte Williams, George Pickens, CeeDee Lamb, all these guys in the fold. Lions look like they're down in the dumps. Wrong. Cowboys find a way. Anytime that you have any hope in the Cowboys, this is when they let you down. And last week, I was wrong to believe in them. You were right, but this defense couldn't stop anybody. They had 44 points dropped on them. Dak Prescott played an average game. Cowboys, I've learned never to believe in them whatsoever. But another team that I cannot believe in, how about the Washington Commanders at number 2? I made fun of the Falcons for being dead, and if they're dead, then I feel like there are maggots inside of the body of the Washington Commanders. Someone check on General Tutty. We don't know where he is right now, but I have never seen a team look so dead. They did not clock in. If you do not see them clock in on Sunday this week, you know why. It is because they are literally attending a funeral, which is the Washington Commanders. Not only did you lose 31-0, but you lost 31-0 to J.J. McCarthy, 9 himself. And he went 16 for 23 for 3 touchdowns. Somebody in the Vikings organization is going to say, well, what about this game against the Commanders? There's some hope that maybe he's the guy. Wrong. He's not. You just faced the Commanders, and the Commanders are dead. They are a dead franchise. You will not see them week 15 because nobody on that team is alive. There are maggots in that body. Disgusting. But at number one, a team that I've been very kind to this year, but now I think it's time that I give them what is due. The Indianapolis Colts at number one. Not only have you lost 4 of the last 5 games, not only has Daniel Jones, unfortunately, suffered a season-ending injury, but your backup quarterback, Riley Leonard, he's also hurt. Anthony Richardson is injured from a lack of a brain, apparently. I don't know. But then your solution was signing Phillip Rivers, who has not played in the league since 2020 and is 44 years old. I don't want to beat a man while he's down because in this case, it's literally elderly abuse at this point. Keep in mind that Phillip Rivers is the same age as Wes Welker, Albert Hainsworth, and Troy Polamalu. They signed a literal senior citizen. And now I know that they were torn between a lot of guys. They were torn between Phillip Rivers, Brett Favre, Joe Biden, a lot of tough choices, but Phillip Rivers is their guy. So at number one, Colts, let's give them some hard candies from your grandma's drawer. I'm sure they'll love them, but Colts at number one.
Yeah, how can you say that while you're wearing a Houston Texans jersey? I mean, my God, you can't say that the Colts are the worst team in the league.
You signed Phillip Rivers hasn't played in the league since a global pandemic. He's the guy that's the guy. You lose your franchise guy. You're like, oh, I know who I need to sign. Phillip Rivers. Imagine if the Patriots, Drake May, God forbid something happens to Drake May. They're like, yo, Tom, you still want to play? And he's 47 years old. It's the same scenario, except Brady actually played till he was 44. Phillip Rivers hasn't played since 2020. And in 2020, he looked very old. So now he's going to go up, and his first game is against the Houston Texans with Will Anderson and CJ Stroud. He's going to die on the field. He's dead.
Yeah.
Like Phillip Rivers, he has 13 children. This is cruelty. Someone check on the Colts. Not only that, if we're going to continue to pick on the Colts, let's not forget that a few years ago, they fired Frank Reich, and they're like, you know who we need to go after? I know who we need to go after. We need to go after the guy that's on ESPN right now. We need to go after Jeff Saturday to fill our void. They go 1-7, and the only win that they got was against Josh McDaniels in the Raiders at the time. That's the guy that they went after. The Colts, can I say they're a bad organization? Maybe not. But do they make these decisions from time to time that make no sense, like the Phillip Rivers signing, like the Jeff Saturday hiring? Yes. Therefore, they are number one.
I remember too, like early on the season, they're like, look how good the Colts are ever since the owner's wife has been on the sideline monitoring Shane Steichen. Like, look how great this team is. Like, okay, yeah, I'm sure that has a lot to do with Jonathan Taylor being on a generational run right now. And the thing is with the Colts, it's a little bit disappointing because I was looking forward to them flaming out with Daniel Jones as their quarterback, and you picked them to miss the playoffs. I thought they would definitely lose their division, especially with the schedule they had. But like mid-season, we just looked ahead like, whoa, they had all of their easy games in September and October. You're also only 1-4 before this game when Jonathan Taylor doesn't have a touchdown. When he does have a touchdown, you are 7-0. So that's clearly a thing. And anytime you could shut down Jonathan Taylor, that was a huge thing. And then you also lost to the Chiefs in overtime, which is looking really bad right now.
Yeah. And every time that they faced a team of worthy competition, they've lost. They lost to the Rams earlier this year. They just lost to the Texans. They lost to the Steelers, who were in the lead in that division. They just lost to the Jaguars. Like, they're a fraudulent team. It's great you beat up on the Dolphins, who were the worst team entering the league. The Broncos, because of a wonky field goal. You beat the Titans twice. You beat the Raiders. You beat the Cardinals. And you beat the Chargers with no offensive line. And basically your entire offense in shambles, including Justin Herbert. So congratulations. Then you had to go to overtime to beat the Falcons, who are, according to the Brickyard, the 4th worst team according to the Brickyard. So I just think a lot of their wins are not as good as we think. And next week when they face the Seahawks and then the Niners, the Jags, and Texans again, I don't think they win another game. I think that's it for them.
Yeah. No, it's definitely possible, especially with how bad this team is. And especially you want to talk about being bad, like Anthony Richard got a orbital fracture in warmups. Are you kidding me? You want to talk about a team that's cursed, and this is probably the curse of getting rid of Peyton Manning and the curse of killing Andrew Luck. And
Yep.
especially fans booed him when he retired. Like the Indianapolis Colts deserve every single bad thing that's going to happen to them. Where Andrew Luck literally is one of the best quarterbacks I guess that has never had help where he gets his team to the conference championship with T.Y. Hilton, and that's pretty much it. And it's just him and T.Y. Hilton. He has no offensive line. He's one of the most sacked quarterbacks in the league, and then the guy pretty much dies on the field. And he's like, you know what? My health is a huge concern right now. I think I need to retire and pursue. I think he went into something like architecture, which is what he had his degree in, and then the fans decided to boo him. So not only did you decide to tell the sheriff, Peyton Manning, to kick rocks and go to Denver and win a Super Bowl, you also booed Andrew Luck when he retired. So this is going to be something that's going to be hanging over this franchise's head for a very long time. And it's something to think about if you're an Indianapolis Colts fan.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the fact that they booed Andrew Luck, a guy that basically kept your team in the playoffs every year, despite the fact that your number one receiver was T.Y. Hilton. No disrespect to T.Y. Hilton. He should have been your number 2 or 3 at best back in that day. And they didn't get him a run game. They didn't get him an offensive line. Their defense was always bad. And they were still 11-5 every year. And then obviously, we already know what Peyton Manning did for the Colts back in the early 2000s, going toe to toe with the Patriots every year. And the fact that they booed him when he left, like, that's just disgraceful. And that's the only 2 good quarterbacks they've had in their lifetime. And since then, it's been Matt Ryan and it's been Carson Wentz and Gardner Minshew and Daniel Jones. And now we have the great Philip Rivers returning.
Yeah, and we'll definitely cover the Colts a little bit more, especially when we go on, because one of the teams that beat them is in the top five. At least 2 of the teams that have beat them this season are. So we're going to go over now. We went over the top 5 worst teams. We're going to go over the top 5 best teams according to the Brickyards and change this list up a little bit this week. The Seattle Seahawks are not on this list this week for no particular reason other than Sam Darnold is your quarterback. And at the end of the day, I think all of these teams would beat them in a head to head playoff matchup for that very reason, because Sam Darnold is your quarterback. I'm not going to suddenly pull the wool over my eyes and expect him to be good here. And the Buffalo Bills, you're still not on the top 5. You haven't done anything to change my mind that you are not the same old Buffalo Bills that is just going to flame out in the playoffs when you go up against an actual team with a real coaching. So, we'll see on Sunday this week, but maybe if you beat the Patriots, I'll be generous and put you on the top 5. But at number 5, we have the team that is returning to the mantra of Saxonville. That's right. The Jacksonville Jaguars are at number 5 right now. They finally take full control of their division in the AFC South, and you go out there, beat the Indianapolis Colts, and no, they didn't injure Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones injured himself on a non-contact injury, but this is the first time since 2017 that they have had 5 sacks in a game. Week 6 in 2017, and that was when they were the Saxonville Jaguars. So not only is their defense showing strides and getting better each week, and this team has been at a perfect simmer all year long where they've been kind of frantic, and then boom, you make one trade for Jacoby Myers. Suddenly the whole team has settled down. Strange at tight end has now worked through some of his injury issues, and he's been a reliable target. The return of Tim Patrick suddenly being a legitimate wide receiver, where in Denver he kind of got injured, kind of had some injuries, and you forgot about him. Now he's a legitimate target for you. BTJ is slowly working his way back in, and then Travis Etienne being a legitimate threat for you. So at number 5, I like the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I think they're going to be a fun team in the playoffs. And Trevor Lawrence, him and Liam Cohen seems like he's been building a great relationship together. And as Jameis Winston said, as soon as Liam Cohen learned how to say Duval correctly instead of Duval, the Jacksonville Jaguars have really started to come into their own. So at number 5, we have the Jags. At number 4, it's the Houston Texans. because if you look at the Houston Texans and you understand football, anywhere they go, whether it's in the cold, whether it's in a dome, this team is built to win in the playoffs. This is the first time they've kind of had some semblance of a balanced offense now with Woody Marks. He can do a little bit on the ground. You can get him on a screen. He's going to make some big plays for you. And then you also have Higgins at wide receiver, who's been solid. Nico Collins has still been one of the most reliable wide receivers in the NFL. Kind of reminds me of Mike Evans, where he's just consistent. Him and CJ Stroud just have that connection. You can always count on him, no matter what team you're facing, to go for a $130 and 2 touchdowns when you need it. And then just the defense. This is a Super Bowl defense. This should be the best defense in the NFL heading into the playoffs. They've beaten the Kansas City Chiefs. They came back with Davis Mills and beat the Jacksonville Jaguars in a huge upset. They beat the Indianapolis Colts and handed them their first loss at home. And also, they beat the Buffalo Bills, who, I mean, the Bills are just so good with Josh Allen. Josh Allen had 6 touchdowns in a game. He's amazing. And then they turned that around, forced him to go for no touchdowns and 2 interceptions, and have been his house of horror. So at number 4, we have the Houston Texans. At number 3, does anyone want to buy a Toyota Tundra? Toyota Corolla at all? Because it is officially Toyotathon love season, and you go up against the Chicago Bears. The Bears are feeling themselves a little bit. Even though Caleb Williams, his stats haven't been the most impressive, they seem like they have a balanced team with Cole Kmet and Colson Loveland being a legitimate tight end duo. You have Monungai and D Swift seemingly being that two-headed monster in the backfield that Ben Johnson was able to create in Detroit with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, except they're kind of the light version of that. I'm not saying they're as good. They're more on the realm of Coleman and Devontae Freeman in Atlanta when they made the Super Bowl run, but still solid. And then your defense, you've had multiple players in the top 5 when it comes to interceptions here, but you run into a Chicago Bears team that Aaron Rodgers has said, what owns you? And the Green Bay Packers own the Chicago Bears, and they were able to come up with the big stop. Caleb Williams rolls out, and then you defend the touchdown, get the turnover on downs, and anytime Jordan Love needed to make a play, he did. And it's not because of Jordan Love balling out. It's also seeing Josh Jacobs now fully healthy. And if that's the Josh Jacobs we're going to get, that is going to keep you in every single game that you're going to go in the playoffs, because now you have a legitimate balanced offense. And Christian Watson looks like an absolute monster this year. I don't know if you've been watching him, but he looks like Deebo Samuel looked in San Francisco when he's hitting his prime. So at number 3, we have the Green Bay Packers. At number 2 is boring, but the Rams. Let's say they go to Carolina and they lose. It's a tough game. It's a fluky game. They're kind of due for a loss. And that's okay. You're still leading your division right now. You have another matchup with Seattle where you'll be able to clinch it, but you drop 45 points on the Cardinals, and the Cardinals were literally invented to just get blown out by 20 points in the 4 o'clock slate every single week, and the Rams go out there. They do exactly that, and now you actually have a solid 1-2 punch in the backfield, which is dangerous. Devontae Adams looks the best he has since he left Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers and Puka Nacua. We had that great explicited quote from him in the end zone where the audio mic picked up that nobody can fuck with me. And all his teammates came around and rallied. And then their defense has also been stifling teams all year. So this Rams team is definitely the most dangerous team in the NFC right now, especially with the Philadelphia Eagles struggles, just with how explosive they can be on offense, and now their defense stepping up. So at number 2, we have the Rams. And this team was on bye this week, have a big game on Sunday. But at number 1, it's the Patriots. The Patriots have been the biggest surprise team, probably going to be the number 1 seed in the AFC. Drake May is number 2 in passing right now. It's been a receiver by committee. And then also their defense has gotten better week in and week out. And I feel like this team is really going to lock in against the Buffalo Bills on Sunday. But at number 1, we have the Patriots.
We love to see it. We got the Patriots shout out, the Rams. We have the Packers on this list. Texans are climbing up this list officially in the playoff picture. We'll preview how these teams will play out when we talk about the current playoff standings, but excellent list. Best of the best, worst of the worst. So now we know, previewing or going ahead and looking at what happened in week 14, who are the best of the best following this list. So we talked about it a little bit, but let's cover this Lions and Cowboys game, which you called it to a T. I'm like, no, Cowboys, maybe they're better than we think they are. Maybe their defense is better now that they have Quinnen Williams and Logan Wilson. Wrong. I was wrong because it wasn't even a big run game for them. We had Jared Goff throwing for 300 yards. Jamison Williams gets loose a few times. So did Amara following his injury. And they put up 44 on the Cowboys. Dak Prescott throws 2 picks in this game, is not the Dak Prescott that we've seen all season. And then ultimately, fumble, 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 fumble. We had a fumble from Jake Ferguson. We had a fumble from Dak. We had a fumble from George Pickens. Everybody was fumbling it. Turnovers, 1 week past Thanksgiving. But you called this. Lions upset the Cowboys in historic fashion.
Ian, it was one of those things where the Cowboys semi-tricked me earlier this season where it looked like their offense was one of the best in the league. And then they had, as soon as everyone was jumping on board, and it was right around when CeeDee Lamb came back, they had a couple weeks where they really struggled. And this is just who the Cowboys and Dak Prescott has been, where as soon as this team looks legit, as soon as the media starts talking about them as a contender, they fall apart. And then also the Detroit Lions were going up against Matt Eberflus, who's the defensive coordinator, and this is really a must-win situation for both teams. And with that being the case, I'm going to pick the Lions every single time because, well, George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb are both great. When you have Jahmyr Gibbs, Jamison Williams, and Amon-Ra St. Brown and Dan Campbell in a must-win situation with these teams back against the wall, they've been pretty good. They haven't been losing back-to-back games either, and this is a team that can really only afford to lose one more game, and then they have to beat Chicago in Week 18. That's pretty much going to be for the last playoff spot in the NFC because they're probably going to be the 7 seed. So you can lose to the Rams on Sunday, but this is a game that they had to have, or you're pretty much out of the playoffs, where the Eagles could still, or the Cowboys could still technically win their division. But it's just one of those cases where this is just who the Cowboys are. They give you hope and then they let you down. Stephen A. Smith has been preaching this, and then, you raise your hopes up very high. Their offense looks dynamic. They look like they have the best offense in the league. They look dynamic here, and then the Lions are like, okay, did you forget who we are? Last year when we just ran all over the Dallas Cowboys, and I think that game ended up being like 44-7 last year too.
It's a
So
beatdown. Yeah, they
yeah.
annihilated them. The Lions, I mean, I looked at their record historically against the Cowboys, and I'm like, oh, maybe this is the year. The Cowboys historically own the Lions, but post Dan Campbell, this Lions team, we can't be looking at records of past Lions. This is a new franchise.
Right.
And honestly, like, I look at their offensive numbers, it's pretty rudimentary for the Lions. I mean, Jared Goff threw for 300. They rushed for 100 yards. They actually contained Jahmyr Gibbs to some extent, despite his 3 touchdowns, but held him to under 4 yards a carry. Like, they did everything they could have done to stop Jahmyr Gibbs, and yet 44 points for the Lions. I don't know how they did it, but they blew out the Cowboys, and the Cowboys proved that you should not trust them because it's not about if they'll let you down, it's when they'll let you down. So big win for the Lions. They stay afloat and still in that mix, still in the playoff picture in the NFC. Cowboys, we'll see what the Eagles do, but they're probably out of the race at this point. But a team that is not out of the playoff race, how about the Seahawks? Annihilating the Falcons. Falcons, worst team according to the Brickyard, worst top 5. And they completely embarrassed Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins, 15 of 32 picks. Bijan Robinson gets contained in this game. Their leading receiver for the Falcons was none other than the legend Kyle Pitts. That's the guy that leads the league in receiving for the Falcons. That's how you know your team's in trouble. No Drake London in this game. And then ultimately, Sam Darnold comes back to form, 3 touchdowns, 250. Zach Charbonnet benefiting well in this committee role with them. And then JSN continuing his ascent as the best receiver in the NFL right now with 1,400 yards, 9 touchdowns, and potentially Offensive Player of the Year right now.
Yeah, no, he's definitely at least the air player of the year. Him and Jonathan Taylor are going to be competing for offensive player of the year. But you look at this Seattle Seahawks team, this is a game where this is the first time since 2013 where on the road they've held a team to only 1 third down conversion. in this game, the Atlanta Falcons were 1 for 12 on third down. And albeit it is Kirk Cousins, but this Falcons team with Michael Penix, with Kirk Cousins, it's been pretty much the same formula. It's the same coach. It's pretty much the same players, short as maybe Michael Penix has a little bit of a better arm, but Kirk Cousins can offset that with just his experience because he can see the field better at this point in his career than Michael Penix. So that should just offset. And then who was the breakout player that we're like, watch this trade? Seattle traded for Rashid Shaheed. At some point, he's going to blow up, and then he's going to be a problem for this, for that any team that they face, where he could house a kick return. He could have a massive play and just break the game open. And who broke the game open in this game? It was Rashid Shaheed and Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Yeah. I love the way the Seahawks looks right now. Rashid Shaheed had a 100-yard kick return. He also had another 67 on the
I think it was the
receiving
longest
game.
kick return of the season, too.
It was 100 yards. And that really broke the game open. Honestly, it was the second half of the Seahawks. They held them to just a field goal in the fourth quarter when the game was basically over. But that second half resurgence, they locked in, and now they're still in that mix for that NFC West title as well. Still knocking on the door with the Rams, but great win for the Seahawks. Falcons are dead. We're probably going to see Raheem Morris fired at the end of this season, and God only knows what happens after that. Maybe they just clear house at this point.
Yeah, Raheem Morris.
Raheem Morris, a fraud. We hate to see it. But
New
let's
quarterback.
talk about
Kyler Murray potentially to the Falcons next year.
yeah, we could potentially see it. Let's talk about another blowout. How about Vikings and Commanders? 31 nothing. You want to talk about a franchise that is dead. I put them at the second worst team according to the Brickyard, but Jaden Daniels comes out there, 9 of 20, 78 yards, re-injures his elbow. Marcus Mariota comes out there, throws an interception. This team is held to under 200 yards in total offense. And then the worst part of it all, it's worse. It's bad enough that your offense doesn't score a single point. It's bad enough. But then on the other side, your defense makes J.J. McCarthy look like the second coming of Drew Brees at this point. 16 of 23, 163, 3 touchdowns. Somebody, and whether it's in the TikTok comments or in the Minnesota organization, is going to look at this game and say, let's give this guy another chance. Let's ignore the Kyler Murrays of the world. Let's ignore someone in the draft. Let's develop this guy. He's the guy. He's the future. He's not the future. He's proven that so far. But J.J. McCarthy plays a good game. And then, obviously, on the ground, we see Aaron Jones have a resurgence. We have Jordan Mason get a touchdown. But ultimately, this game it's a good win for the Vikings, even though they're out of playoff contention. But it's bad for them overall. The fact that J.J. McCarthy plays the game that he does, do you think that this is going to give them false hope? Or do they know that this is just not their guy and they just faced a dead team?
Yeah, I think it's mixed with JJ McCarthy because you have seen a lot of quarterbacks be really bad in their rookie year and have a chance to turn it around. So I think you should at least keep JJ McCarthy around the building because in college, the biggest problem with him is he didn't have to do too much. Not only did Jim Harbaugh cheat, to win a national championship, but pretty much all he did was hand the ball off. So he really hasn't had too much experience having to command the offense. And the Vikings also don't really have a great run game to support him, especially for a young quarterback. That definitely helps a lot. So he went out there, had 163 yards and 3 touchdowns. So with JJ McCarthy, I'm not saying he is the guy, but with young quarterbacks, we all develop at our own pace. So I would look to bring in a veteran quarterback, maybe someone like Mac Jones to compete with him, but I wouldn't completely bail on him where we say he's done. I feel like we've had too many young quarterbacks just get tossed out because they had a couple bad games where JJ McCarthy still hasn't played a full season all the way through. For me, my biggest concern with him is he's not durable. So to get that experience, to get better, you have to play in as many big games as possible, but he's shown flashes that he can be good. It just may take 4 or 5 years, and this is the most expensive team in the league. So can you do that? That is the big question. So I think you should have kept Darnold and let JJ McCarthy develop. The problem is they didn't have the money to do that. So maybe take a chance on someone like a Mac Jones next year, but I don't think someone like Kyler Murray would be the answer. I think you'd still have to go potentially go to the draft.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because we look at guys like Bryce Young, for example, had a horrible first season, and he's developed into a decent quarterback, I would say, especially this year. You're starting to see that come around. Some guys do have that slower progression. Josh Allen's another example. Had a rough year, first year and a half. Then obviously we know what Josh Allen became, but I don't believe in JJ McCarthy long term. I think they should go after a veteran, but at the end of the day, this team's going to have to make a lot of changes in the sense that you have Aaron Jones that you're paying. You're paying Justin Jefferson. I think they're soon to pay Jordan Addison. And then everybody on their defense, like they're going to have to make some tough decisions over the next year or so if they're going to be able to afford paying somebody like, Kyler Murray or a quarterback in the future.
I would say with the Vikings that I would try and establish a run game first before you completely bail on him. And then potentially I could see Justin Jefferson asking for a trade in the offseason, especially with someone who's as big of a personality as him, who's always going to be putting pressure on JJ McCarthy. And sometimes having that star receiver for a young quarterback is not great for their development because he does feel like he has to get Justin Jefferson the ball. So that can definitely mess up your flow there. So for JJ McCarthy, I'm not saying he's going to develop into a great NFL quarterback, but let's see what he looks like with an established run game. If he can pull through with a great NFL season, have a couple good games, but this at least gives you a little bit of hope here. I will say for the Vikings too, this was their first shutout since 1993, which was the longest drought in NFL history. They're also the first team in NFL history to get shut out and then shut out a team the very next week. So history was made this week.
Good work for the Vikings. I didn't know that stat. That's good to know. So it's been 30 years since they shut somebody out. But then they did that against the Commanders and shut down and probably ended Jaden Daniels' season. Ultimately, he re-injures his elbow. Commanders, nothing much to say there. They are dead. Commanders, they should shut down Jaden Daniels, wrap him in bubble wrap, ideally. But they are dead. Speaking
That's
of a
where I
dead,
was confused. Like, why was he back? Why did you feel the need to bring Jaden Daniels back when your season is lost? You have no chance to win the division. He's already proven that he's going to put himself in harm's way. And then you have just a meaningless game against the Minnesota Vikings. And now Jaden Daniels gets hurt again. Are you kidding me? Like, this is seriously terrible mismanagement of your personnel here. Like, he should have been shut down for the rest of the year.
yeah, and at this point, they're officially eliminated from playoff contention. And this is a guy that's also re-injured he re-injured his elbow. He's been banged up all season, nursing various injuries. He got banged up last year as well. But this is a guy that you don't want to have an RG3 scenario again. And right now they're on track, especially with all the similarities that we've seen with him. They were the same on draft night. They were both picked second overall. They both got the same injury against the same team in the same quarter on the same yard line. Like the weird coincidences between him and RG3. I don't want him to become the next RG3. I think he can be a top 5 quarterback in the league, but why are you playing him when you're 3-9 at this point, and then you go and get shut out by the Vikings, your season's over, and your franchise quarterback is hurt? Like that's just malpractice by the Commanders at its finest. But let's talk about one more blowout before we talk about the good games on the 1 o'clock slate. Dolphins continuing on their historic stretch, winning their 4th straight game, beating the Jets 34-10. We had a big game from Jalen Wright. Devon Achane plays a big game, but we see the premiere of Brady Cook. What did you think about Brady Cook on the Jets here?
Not good. Bad.
Not Had he have spiked the ball on the ground every play, his QBR would have been higher. 14 of 30, 2 picks, QBR of 35. They shut down Brees Hall. I mean, I don't feel like it's fair for me to bully the Jets at this point. Like I've said all I've needed to say, but the Dolphins are somehow back in the playoff race, which is hilarious. I know they're not going to make the playoffs. Tua, the way they won this game is him not throwing the ball. Ultimately, they rushed it 41 times to his 21 passing, but Is there any hope that the Dolphins actually keep this season afloat, potentially squeak into the playoffs at all?
No, I don't think so. You play New England at the end of the year. Maybe you win that game because New England has the last seed locked up there, but you would need what Houston to fall out of the. You need Houston or the Chargers to pretty much fall out at this point because like the Bills are there, the Texans are there, and the Chargers are there, and I really don't think any of those teams are going to fall out of the playoff picture at this point. So no, I don't think the Dolphins have a chance. They do this every single year where they start really slow and then. Last year they came on where they had a chance to push for the playoffs, and it's almost like Mike McDaniels and Tua when all the pressure is off. They're just trying to save their job, and then also you had Devon A-Chain get beat up in this game as well, and he had an injury, and he's been your best player. So if he's going to be banged up in the home stretch of the season here, I don't think they have an actual shot of making the playoffs.
Yeah, the other thing is they have a worse conference record than the Ravens and Chiefs. So they're going to need to have a better record than the Chiefs and Ravens in order to even be close to the playoffs. So I don't think it's possible, but it is great to see. I mean, this team was what 1-6 at one point, and now they're 6-7. So maybe they finish with a winning record, or maybe they're 8-9. But fun story. Maybe Mike McDaniels keeps his job another year, but I just don't see that happening. But let's talk about a game that on paper, we looked at this game, we laughed at it, Titans and Browns. But then it turned out to be one of the best games in the 1 o'clock slate. Titans and Browns. Shador Sanders throws for 364 in this game. Covers is over. And the Titans 2-11. They get their win. It's their first win in like what, 6 weeks? How many losses did they have in a row? 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Breaks their 6-game losing streak. Their last win was against the Cardinals in that infamous Cardinals game. But
Surprise. Shocked.
but they yeah, but they squeak out a win. Tony Pollard has 160 on the ground. And then Myles Garrett does get another sack, is inching closer to that sack record. But really, I mean, story of this game was, for one thing, the Titans winning. That's big. The Giants now have the number 1 overall pick. But also Shador Sanders, 23 of 42, 3 touchdowns, 364. He is now the starter for the remainder of the season. So big win. Maybe the Browns have their guy. We don't know.
Yeah, the Browns might have their guy who's going to have to compete with a rapist in the offseason next year. So, do they want the Nepo baby or do they want the massage parlor quarterback in Deshaun Watson? We'll find out next year. But this game is so bizarre because Cam Ward goes 50% completion percentage. He only has 117 yards passing. 2 of those were touchdowns, though. And then your leading receiver had 28 yards. Yet you beat the Cleveland Browns 31-29. And this was one of the most competitive, most entertaining games. And now you made the race for the number 1 pick a legit race for the number 1 pick now, where this is a game where you really don't want to win this game. And this is a game where I feel like you should try and find a way to lose, especially since Cam Ward, like, he only threw for 117 yards, and then the Browns still lost. It's like the Browns are still inventing new ways to lose. And then, Shador Sanders, I give him credit. He actually looked good. He's been named the starter, so I think it's good that Kevin Stefanski kind of protected him a little bit, understanding that the Browns never really had a chance to make the playoffs this year, and he seemed like someone who just needed some extra time to sit on the bench. So if you can just have him kind of come in at the end of the year, learn a little bit under Joe Flacco, learn from some of Dylan Gabriel's mistakes, and actually come in, like, he has some pretty solid instincts here. He's able to throw downfield on the run, and he's actually able to throw the deep ball a little bit here. He's a little bit mobile. And then Noah you had Fannin at tight end come in, have 114 receiving yards. So all in all, good game for the Browns, and the Browns lost this game, which they should have. So the Titans making it a real race for the number 1 pick. Now they're tied with the Raiders, and I believe the Raiders moved into the number 1 spot after they won this game.
It's either the Raiders or Giants. I'm not entirely sure, but the good news for the Titans is, like, I knew that they were a bad team, but were they a 1-win bad team? Now they have their 2 wins. Now they can ride off into the sunset, lose out the rest of their games, potentially still get the number 1 overall pick. But I feel like for them, they get a win against the Browns, which is one of the wins that they had left on their schedule. Now the rest of their schedule looks like the Niners, Chiefs, Saints, and Jaguars. So maybe the Saints is another win for them, but ultimately they've done everything they could do for this season. We know how bad the Titans are. They're still in much of a rebuild, but nonetheless, another upset actually. Saints, another team that was vying for the number one overall pick. They beat the Buccaneers, which makes it very interesting in the NFC South. They get the upset. Tyler Shaw has 2 running touchdowns in this. We have Devin Neal have a big game for them on the ground with 70 rushing yards. And they beat the Buccaneers, making it a two-way tie for the top of that division, Panthers and Bucks, as we complete the rest of the season. Massive upset. Somebody must have called that.
Yeah, and the New Orleans Saints fourth quarter touchdown was 9 minutes and 41 seconds, which was the longest scoring drive of 2025. How about that?
Jesus Christ. Jesus
9
Christ.
minutes and 41 seconds. You let the Saints hold the ball for not even half the quarter, 3 quarters of the fourth quarter. They have the ball here. You just ice out Baker Mayfield on the sideline. And for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it just looks like an injured team right now. They look like a team that's gotten beat up all year long. Baker Mayfield is definitely dealing with not one, but probably multiple injuries right now. But if you are out there, you're still putting yourself out there for criticism. So if you're going to play, you kind of have to take it on the chin. And you just lost to the New Orleans Saints, who have now beaten the Panthers and they've beaten the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So now Tyler Shuck has kind of put himself in the conversation next year for the New Orleans Saints to actually potentially be a legitimate quarterback. And this could be another team to watch on your radar where if they hit on their draft next season, the Saints could be one of those surprise upset teams because how consistent will the Carolina Panthers be, especially if they win the division and they have a number one record schedule next season? That's probably not going to be very good for them. And then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers seem like they get older and more injured in each season. So I'm looking at it next year. If you want to get some early bets in, potentially the New Orleans Saints is a sleeper just to win the South next season, I think could be a pretty good play because now Tyler Shuck, he can move a little bit and he's just doing what he needs to win. And it seemed like their offense is coming in. And even with Spencer Rattler, they looked like a pretty competitive team where they weren't just dead in the water. They were a good bad team, and now you just beat 2 of the best teams in your division. So now they've shown they can beat the Bucks. You've shown you can beat the Panthers here, and now you're gonna have a chance to play some more upset ball. You hit on your draft. It looks like you might actually have your quarterback.
Yeah, and the cool part about the Saints is yes, they are 3-10, but I think it's important. Like we've talked about the Cardinals in the past, we've talked about the Lions in the past. Like bad team, good bad teams, and I think the Saints are a good bad team. They had a close loss against the Cardinals and 49ers to start the season. They played close against Buffalo. They played close against the Patriots. They played close against the Dolphins last week. Like this is a team that, if things fall their way, maybe they have another 2 or 3 wins on their belt, and we're looking at a 5-8 team that's still definitely in rebuild. But they're a fun team. I think Tyler Shaw, he was a second round pick. I think, especially this year, working through some of his pains, like this team, if they can get a good second receiver along Chris Olave, if they can find Alvin Kamara's replacement, and then get an offensive line around him, then I think the Saints are genuinely going to be like a solid team next year. Maybe they don't win the division quite yet, but they're right on the cusp of it. I don't think they're that far off.
Yeah, and 2, look at Philadelphia's offense without Kellen Moore. Huh? Who would have thought? And like Kellen
Yeah.
Moore has kind of been a guy who's kind of gotten kicked around. He was with Dallas, and then Mike McCarthy was insecure, so he fired Kellen Moore, and then he went to the Chargers, and then I believe the Chargers had a pretty good year
Mhm.
under Kellen Moore. He goes to Philadelphia, they win the Super Bowl, and now he's with the New Orleans Saints, and seems like this team has actually been competitive, and they just haven't gone away, which is kind of similar to what we saw with the Panthers last season, where the Panthers really start to pick it up in December and show some momentum going into the following year. So Saints are definitely on our watch for just that next team.
Yeah. Let's talk about some teams. So we talked about some upsets. Let's talk about some games that actually had playoff implications on the line. And a game that was probably the game of the week going into it, and it didn't, and it definitely delivered. Bills and Bengals. Bengals fall in this game, but 39-34. Joe Burrow returns 4 touchdowns. Josh Allen has 3 of his own. And it's just an offensive juggernaut. Fourth quarter, both teams putting up points, but I forget exactly how we bet this. I know I think you picked the Bengals, I picked the Bills, but monster game. Bills stay in that race for potentially the AFC East, but also in the playoff picture. Do you think with this loss, the Bengals are officially out of it, or there's still that chance that they crawl back?
I think they're out because the Steelers or the Ravens pretty much only need to win one more game to eliminate them. Because if the Steelers win another one, I think they'll have the tiebreaker. So I do think that either Pittsburgh or Baltimore will still win the division. And now you've just dug yourself a hole that's just a little bit too deep. Where if you look at some of their losses, if you win that Jets game earlier in the year, if you win that Jacksonville game earlier in the year, you're looking at a completely different Cincinnati Bengals team where it just comes down to one or two really bad losses for this team. So it's like the same story as last year. So for me, this was the game that you had to win if you're going to win your division, and you still can do it with 8 and 9. But I'm not going to pick them to do it anymore. If they had won this game, I would emphatically have said yes, they're winning their division, especially with the debacle that we saw with the Steelers and the Ravens on Sunday, and we can talk about that next. But it's just really disappointing because the Bengals are playing really good all game. They look unstoppable. And then Joe Burrow has 2 of the dumbest interceptions that I've ever seen. Like the first one, he just pops the ball in the air, gets a pick six, and then he gets another one where it's just batted in the air by the defensive line, and then it's another interception. And that was a game that you're in control of the entire time. We saw one of the best catches all year with T. Higgins with that one-handed catch in the end zone. Jamar Chase was going off. Chase Brown was going off. Samaje Perine was starting to come alive. We had some huge plays from Mike Gesicki with his hands, looking sure as ever in this one. And then you just have 2 really dumb plays back to back where you can live with one of them, but the fact that you had 2 turnovers, it's just devastating. And then on the flip side for the Bills, uh, that was 2 of the dumbest plays I've ever seen Joe Burrow make. And you almost lost that game to Cincinnati at home in a blizzard in Buffalo. Like, this was another game where you have a fumble through the end zone. It just like, this is like one of those wins that's like, this doesn't give me a lot of confidence in Buffalo at all, especially coming out of it.
Well, my biggest thing I look at for the Bills is like, this is like, if we look at all of their wins, right? It has to be them. Their win against the Ravens, 40, the Jets, 30, the Dolphins, 30, the Saints, 30. Like the only time they win these games are if they can put up at least 30 points. And every time that they don't put up 30 points, i.e., the Texans game, the Dolphins game, the Falcons game, the Patriots game, they lose because their defense is the biggest problem. Their defense can't stop anybody. And especially when they go and face the Patriots this weekend, can they stop Drake May in that offense? Can they stop the Eagles a few weeks from now? I know they have the Browns and Jets as well, which should be an easier task, but this Bills team, I can't trust their defense. And then at the end of the day, this team is still also resulting with turnovers. Josh Allen was the clean game, but we had 2 fumbles from James Cook, and these are all costly moments too. Like you mentioned with that goal line fumble, like the Bills are still that team that we worry about making the wrong play in a key moment, just like what we've seen them against the Chiefs the last 5 years. Like, I can't trust the Bills because they still don't seem like a team that I can trust moving forward, especially with how they played in this game. Their defense sucks, and then in the moments that matter, they fumble.
Yeah, and then also, if a coach and quarterback go their first 5 years together without winning a Super Bowl, they don't.
Yeah, they don't.
They
And
don't.
that's why I think we can be both of these teams I think are going to fire their head coach. Zach Taylor, I think they should definitely fire, especially because like I look at the Bengals, right? That I see on these wins, right? We have a game against the Jets, which they had the last minute, they couldn't stop them. The Bears game, inexcusable.
Oh,
They had a lead with 47 seconds. Huge game from Colston Loveland there. And then they played a close game against the Patriots. I know the Patriots are at the top of their class right now, but they have at least 2 wins on their schedule, which makes them go from 4-9 to potentially 6-7, which is still right in the mix. These 2 games we're going to look back on. This Bills game we're going to look back on and say, damn, if they just went the other way, this team wins their division. And it's been like that how many years since the Super Bowl now at this point? How many times are they going to start slow, get hot at the end of it, and just barely miss out on the playoffs before we're like, wait a minute, maybe it's Zach Taylor's fault. Maybe we need to try something new. But I think this is the last year with Zach Taylor.
yeah, and it's like, really, we're gonna blame Lou Anarumo? He's the problem. The guy who
Hasn't
came
been
up with the defensive strategy to not only stop the Chiefs, but that was when the Chiefs were at the peak of their powers with Travis Kelsey in his prime and Tyreek Hill, when Tyreek
yeah,
Hill was the most dynamic possible, and he stopped that offense. But he's the problem. Like, really?
hasn't been a problem in Indy. I'll tell you what, Indy doesn't mind having him as a DC. They played great for them. So Bengals, they're probably dead, sadly. Bills do win. They still are in the hunt. They're probably going to get that wild card spot. But speaking of the AFC North, let's talk about whatever this game was, which was the Steelers and Ravens game, a game where I feel like both teams were trying to lose. It felt like Steelers still squeak out the win. They're probably going to win that division at this point, but good Lord. Ultimately, I thought it was going to be a lower scoring game. I thought this was going to be like a classic 16-13 game, but Lamar starting to get his rhythm back a little bit, but ultimately, Steelers prevail. What did you think about this AFC North bout?
So the Steelers had 31 rushing yards in this game and won, which is their fewest rushing yards in a victory since 1989. So
Jesus
there's that.
Christ.
I get we had a electric screen to Warren, and he was able to break off a huge play, but like for the Steelers it's just too inconsistent. And then this was the first time since October or early no yeah, it's the first time since October that they had a 20 plus yard pass downfield. So Aaron Rodgers has a couple deep balls to DK Metcalf in this game, but like this is just one of those games where the Steelers showed you every reason why you should be frustrated with them, because somewhere in there is a good team. It's just Mike Tomlin and Arthur Smith just seem like they're from a different time. And then you also have John Harbaugh, who also seems like he's kind of an outdated head coach at this point. But for the Ravens, this is a massive fumble, because not only do you lose to the Cincinnati Bengals, but now you lose to the Pittsburgh Steelers in back to back weeks in division. And Lamar Jackson seems like he's still dealing with injuries. He doesn't seem like he's quite right yet. Derrick Henry had a pretty solid game for you, where he has a couple touchdowns, and then your defense still isn't right. So this just is going to be where whoever wins this division and plays the Buffalo Bills in the first round is probably going to get destroyed. And that's probably going to be the first round bye that happens again for Buffalo. So we're going to have Sean McDermott against Mike Tomlin or Baltimore. And it's just disappointing seeing Baltimore win this game, because now it's definitely looking like we're going to have Pittsburgh be the team that wins the AFC North. And they just don't look dynamic, and it's just disappointing. And the Ravens drive all the way down the field, and they get stopped on fourth down by Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh's defense, they haven't looked impressive all year long.
No, this is the sad part about the Steelers is like they're still going to be that 9-8 team. They're still going to make the playoffs. Their schedule is fairly easy. They got the Dolphins and Browns on their schedule. They face the Ravens at the end of the season, which is probably going to be for their division ultimately. But like, I'm just not impressed with what I've seen from them. Their defense has been poor. Aaron Rodgers, he's been solid, but I definitely don't think it's the Aaron Rodgers that we know and love. Um, the worst part about this, though, is that they're still going to have that winning record. And despite the fact that they've been one or fewer games above 500 in those 20 years of winning seasons, it's just that same headline is going to go into next season. Mike Tomlin's still going to probably be the head coach, and no changes are going to be made. They're going to have to probably bring back Aaron Rodgers, and It's just not the arc that I want. I prefer the Ravens to win. At least we see Lamar Jackson versus Josh Allen in that scenario. But instead, we're going to see 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers against Josh Allen, and Josh Allen's going to kill them. Let's be honest.
Yeah, and if I'm Roger Goodell, I use my powers as commissioner and like, yeah, I get that you won your division, but I don't care. I'm gonna put the Kansas City Chiefs in at the 4 seed or the 5 seed and give Buffalo the home game because we'd rather see Mahomes and Josh Allen in the first round than any of these teams in the AFC North, except for maybe Cincinnati. If I was Roger Goodell, I'd make the case like, you know what, Joe Burrow was injured this year. That was an electric game in Buffalo in the snow, so I'm actually just going to flex out Pittsburgh and Baltimore because I don't think either of you deserve to be in there just for the sake of the quality of the product of the NFL in the first round. And I'm going to flex Cincinnati into the 4 seed for you. So if I was Roger Goodell, I would kind of just use some of my powers. Like, yeah, I get you technically won your division, but you really didn't. We want to see Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Joe Burrow in there. We don't want to see whatever the Steelers team is supposed to be with Arthur Smith and Mike Tomlin, and then an injured Lamar Jackson with John Harbaugh.
Yeah, it's just not a good product. And I mean, especially because I think either one of these teams could end up being 8-9 and make the playoffs. And none of those teams that we've seen that makes the playoffs with a losing record have a historic season. We saw the Bucks the last year with Tom Brady make it at 8-9. They didn't go far. We saw the Seahawks like 15 years ago at 7-9. They didn't go far. So it's just like, what's the point? I don't like that at all. So not a great game nonetheless. But a game that was fun to watch. Jags and Colts. Jags moving to the driver's seat at the number one team. Unfortunately, Daniel Jones does go down with injury. Hate to see it. But now the Colts, Riley Leonard also gets hurt in this game. They are hiring Philip Rivers to be their savior as they have now lost 4 of the last 5 games. And I think it's time I do my victory lap again because we were right. I said on the Ravens game, after the Titans game, I'm like, they have the Steelers, the Chiefs, the Texans, the Jags, the Seahawks, the Niners, the Jags, and Texans again. This team is not going to make the playoffs. I'm calling it now. I thought it was going to be because of Daniel Jones. It's not, which I guess is good for Daniel Jones. But now they've lost 4 of the last 5. They are officially out of the playoffs as of today. And they have the Seahawks coming up next, and the Niners, and the Jags, and the Texans. All good teams. And you're running out there with 44-year-old Philip Rivers, who hasn't played since 2020. So that's their savior. I was right about the Colts. Again, I don't want to see anybody get hurt in the NFL. Daniel Jones, even if I'm not a fan of him, I don't want to see him tear his Achilles. However, I was right about the Colts, and I just want to pat myself on the back there.
Yeah, and you were right about the Colts, and it's not even like Daniel Jones got hurt on a horrific play. Daniel Jones got injured on a non-contact play. It was a non-contact
Yeah.
Achilles injury, and he's been dealing with a fibula injury. And if you have any tightness in your ankle or you're dealing with any soreness in your calf, that typically the next step from there is going to be an Achilles injury. And credit to him for pushing through. But maybe, just maybe, if your starting quarterback is dealing with an injury that could lead to a season-ending one, especially you're in Indiana. You saw what happened to Tyrese Halliburton in the finals. Maybe you plan ahead, especially with Anthony Richardson already having an orbital fracture. And now I thought this was a parody when they were bringing in Philip Rivers. I'm like, is the Babylon Bee making weird headlines about sports right now? No, this was an actual source. And then Philip Rivers is 44 years old and you're bringing him into Indianapolis. Like, no one wants to see this. Like, Philip Rivers is going to go out there and then we're going to see him get run over by Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson Jr. in a game. Like, no one wants to see elder abuse right now. No one wants to see Joe Biden come in and play quarterback at this point. Like, for Philip Rivers' sake, for his potentially future CTE and saving his brain, saving his wits as he enters, his 50s and 60s, like, don't do this. This is a bad idea. And the fact that they're signing him to the practice squad sounds even more ridiculous. The Colts have signed Philip Rivers to their practice squad. Like, give me a break. And then for Daniel Jones, this is also part of the problem with Daniel Jones is he's not reliable on the field, and you can't rely on him to stay on the field because outside of the year where they made the playoffs, Daniel Jones has pretty much dealt with an injury of some sort every single year, which is another reason why you can't rely on him. And it's just disappointing that we can't see the Colts fall apart with Daniel Jones, because I knew the Colts were going to fall apart. And then we don't get to see the full meltdown with Daniel Jones. And then people are still going to have the wherewithal to say, well, if Daniel Jones was on the team, what could have happened? Like, no, Daniel Jones was losing overtime games to the Chiefs, who looks really bad right now. He lost to the Texans, and then they were probably still going to lose this game versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. Like, I really wanted to see them still fall apart with Daniel Jones. And the fact that it was a non contact injury, are you kidding me?
Yeah, that was tough to see. I will say I disagree. I do want to see 44-year-old Philip Rivers play. I don't expect it to be a great product, but let me tell you, Philip Rivers, I grew up watching him. I remember him in San Diego. I have fond memories of Philip Rivers, but it's going to be such a sight because you got to think about it in this sense. Like 5 years is a long time. We have had two presidential elections in that time since then. And he has since we've seen a full presidential term and now 1 year into the Trump term without Philip Rivers. He was in the he's
And
a
a pandemic.
semifinalist. He's a semifinalist for the Hall of Fame right now. He literally could be in the Hall of Fame and then play for the Colts on Sunday. That is the arc that we're living in. And look, I understand that Tom Brady played at 44 and he played great. He won the MVP at 43, and that's great. But there are a difference between a guy like Tom Brady who's obsessed with his body and then a 44-year-old Philip Rivers who we just saw 5 years ago look very old for the Colts. Like that was an old looking Philip Rivers. And maybe he still got it and I still want to see it, but I think I want to see it more for comedic value than like, oh yeah, this is a guy that's going to bring him over the edge. Apparently, him and Shane Stockton apparently talk every week, and he coaches his high school wherever. I think he lives in California, and apparently the play scheme that they run in that offense is identical to the Shane Steichen offense. So kind of weird, but nonetheless, I see what they're trying to do. But this just reminds me of the Jeff Saturday hiring. I know it's not the same position, but similar in the sense that they have a crisis on their hands. At that end, they had a bad head coach. This time they have an injured quarterback. And instead of going after, like, I don't know, a young guy trying to prove himself in the league, or maybe a guy that's a backup quarterback that's looking for his opportunity, instead you take a guy who's been on the couch for 5 years to be your quarterback for the next 4 games, vying for a playoff spot. I just think this is a Cinderella story that unfortunately is going to bomb.
Yeah, so and then if Philip Rivers gets hurt, you're not only gonna have to deal with Peyton Manning getting injured, pushing him out, killing Andrew Luck, Daniel Jones getting injured, but you could also potentially kill Philip Rivers. Are you kidding me? Like,
And that's 13 kids. He has 13 kids. That's a village of people that are going to be devastated thanks to you. So Colts, not great. But I will say, for the Jaguars, we had a good game from Trevor Lawrence, good game from Travis Etienne, and BTJ awoke in this game. He had a big catch, had 87 receiving yards, led the team in receiving yards. So Jags, I mean, we talked a lot about the Colts, but the Jaguars, they played a great game. They deserved that win, and they deserve the AFC South right now.
yeah, I mean, they got a solid squad right now between Jacoby Myers, Tim Patrick, Strange, Travis Etienne, and then BTJ, who's been working through some injuries. I really think that has been what's bothering him this season. Like, it's a legit team, and now their defense is coming alive now with 5 sacks. So we'll see where the Jaguars are, but that'll be an interesting showdown with them in Houston that they have at the end of the year.
And then we got a couple more games to cover. Let's talk about Packers and Bears because this game was for that division. Bears were the 1 seed at one point, and that's gone. Bears lose to the Packers. Packers take care of business. Toyotathon Jordan Love is back and better than ever. Josh Jacobs comes out of the mix. Christian Watson leads the team in receiving yards, has 2 big touchdowns in this game. And then for the Bears, Caleb Williams again inaccurate, makes a bad throw in this game, and the Bears, just when they were riding high, they take a step back. Still didn't beat the Packers. Does this lose your faith in the Bears at all as far as losing? I know the Packers, I think, are probably a better team, But does this lose any hope for the Bears at all, as far as if they're still a legitimate team?
Yeah, because so the Packers make history in this game, beating the Chicago Bears in 15 straight home games, scoring fewer than 30 points in each of them. So you make NFL history there. And then everywhere in Chicago, the radio hosts are talking about Super Bowl. We're going to be the number one seed. And I've never seen a team go from the number one seed to potentially looking forward at the schedule to falling out of the playoffs, where we're talking about, is it going to be a Drake May and Caleb Williams Super Bowl to, are the Chicago Bears even going to make the Super Bowl, because, or even make the playoffs, because you play the Packers again this year, then you play the Lions in week 18, which is going to be pretty much for that last playoff spot. So say the Lions lose to the Rams and then you lose to the Packers, you're pretty much going to be dueling out. And then just the play call that Ben Johnson had at the end of the game, where we're not going to, on 4th and 1, give Cole Kmet the ball and do a tush push, or even do it with Colson Loveland. We're going to eliminate half the field and have Caleb Williams roll out and then go for broke, where we're not even going to try and pick up the first down with 20 seconds left and 2 timeouts. We're going to just try and go for it all, then miss it. And now we go from the chance to still be the number one seed, snap that epic losing streak versus Green Bay, and now you're potentially going to fall out of the playoffs, which is completely ridiculous. And then you look at some of Caleb Williams' stat lines that he's had when they've won. Like last week, he didn't throw for over 200 yards. This week, he hasn't thrown for over 200 yards either. And then when both of your running backs don't rush for over 120 yards, turns out it's going to be a lot harder to win games. And that's exactly what the Chicago Bears figured out. And then I think Ben Johnson, sometimes he just gets a little bit too fancy, and he should just sometimes, stick to the fundamentals, where, hey, let's pick up the 4th down instead of going for broke and going for the touchdown and going for the tie in this game, where you still had 2 timeouts. And I think that was a huge error that he made. And then just Jordan Love in this game, 17 for 25, 234, 3 touchdowns. Josh Jacobs with the massive run to pretty much set up the touchdown at the end of it there. And then you clinch the game 28-21. And, the Packers just seem relaxed, and they seem like the better team front to back this entire game.
Yeah, I think you said it well. I think my biggest fear with Caleb Williams is the fact that he's completing under 60% of his throws, and he hasn't completed over 60% of his throws since the Baltimore game back in October. Meanwhile, he's throwing the 20 of 34, the 20 of 36, the 50% completion rating against the Vikings. Like, this is a guy that isn't being very accurate in his games either. He can be a little bit mobile, and I like that about him, but just not being consistent enough, not making the right play when it matters. So I am concerned about him in that case. I think the Bears should still potentially make the playoffs, but that NFC is not a joke. I mean, the Lions are 8-5 and not in the playoff race. If they were in the AFC, they'd be in the playoffs right now. So it's just, you're in a very competitive NFC, and you can't afford to lose games the way you did just now against the Packers. And your schedule is still pretty tough. You face the Packers again, you face the Niners, and you face the Lions. All games that you could potentially fall and be out of the playoffs for.
Yeah, and you could potentially lose all 3 of those. And, you if you go um 1 for 1 for 3, you're out of it pretty much. And then the Lions, I believe, play the Vikings, Rams, and Bears to finish it out as well. So get a little bit of an easier game with the Vikings. You probably win that one. I think they probably lose to the Rams, but it's pretty much going to be week 18. We're going to show down, because I think the 49ers, their in conference record is just too good for the Bears or Lions to pass them if it's a tie for that last spot.
Yeah, I agree. But interesting game. We'll see how the Bears recover from that. But a couple more games to cover. Speaking of cover, should we talk about Broncos and Raiders? A game that caused complete outcry in Vegas, not just in Las Vegas, but also just those who are gambling men. Some people were negatively affected by that field goal. Others didn't mind that field goal. Other people were like, you know what? Maybe they do cover that 8.5-point spread. But Broncos get the win. Bo Nix, no touchdowns, but 31 of 38, RJ Harvey starting to emerge. I was big on RJ Harvey entering the draft. He's starting to get his legs now. Big game for Cortland Sutton. Broncos, not the sexiest 11-2 team I've ever seen, but they keep winning games. They keep making stops. And then for the Raiders, thank you, Pete Carroll, for lining my wallets well. I can't be mad at the Raiders this week. They actually did me a great deed. So I have nothing bad to say about this game. I'm actually very happy. I think the Raiders did just what they needed to do. So very happy here.
So is it Dave Portnoy who was crashing out after this game? Did he bet the 7.5 point spread?
Yeah. Yeah, he bet against,
Yeah.
I think it was 8.5 for the Broncos, and they had it up until the last 20 seconds. And then the Raiders rushed to get into field goal range, spike the ball, and kick a field goal to end the game, basically. And everyone sounded the alarm, as they probably should. That was a very suspicious end of a spread, but some people might have predicted that spread and wasn't so upset about the outcome of that field goal. So, I mean, I'm sitting there pretty happy. They got a touchdown with 2 minutes to go. They get the ball back. They get the field goal. So they cover. And yeah, I mean, I mean, the Broncos, not the sexiest 11-2 team, but the Raiders also not the ugliest 2-11 team. They help some people out when they need it. So I appreciate that stimulus check that they gave me.
Yeah, and maybe Dave Portnoy should watch the Brickyard or pick the Brickyard up so he actually has a good sports show on Barstool that predicts things accurately and can help him make money. But headline says scammer gets scammed. Oh no, the crypto scammer who shills for bullshit coins gets scammed, and then he's also someone who pushes gambling apps, and that's how he makes his money. And I have no problem with gambling, but like when you're a scammer and you benefit off of people losing their livelihood, you benefit off of crypto scams, and then you're also someone who berates their employees when they don't make the right joke and they laugh at the wrong joke, and you're also someone who's on your moral high horse when it comes to, oh, we try and have integrity at Barstool and our jokes are PC and they're correct, where I feel like other people's jokes aren't. Like, really, Barstool of all people, when Dave Portnoy was dropping the N word in some of his comedy specials, like you're gonna be the one that freaks out about other people's jokes.
Especially when they're pointed at you, like
Yeah.
I don't know, a guy that consistently says gay jokes and, jokes that are maybe towards a certain race. As soon as they make a joke towards your religion, suddenly it's this big ordeal and everyone needs to get in line. Like, shut up, dude. I'm not a
Someone
hater
threw
of bars.
pennies at me. Oh no.
It's like, I think you're okay with your $300 million that you have. I think you're okay that you lost this bet. It's fine. That's what happens. If you look back a few weeks ago when the Browns didn't kick the field goal to cover the spread, like you didn't see me cry about it. It's just that's the way of the NFL these days. Suspicious things occur. It's just kind of the world we have to live in. But I don't know. Just crying the way he did was a little dramatic. That's all.
Yeah, and like sports are fun. Like part of like sports entertainment is being over the top. It's being a little bit dramatic, but also when you're like a 50-year-old guy wearing a gay for May shirt, like how cringy can it get? Like I'm as big of a Drake May fan as anybody, but you're not gonna catch me wearing a gay for May shirt. Are you kidding me? As a 50-year-old man? Like
No, it's just bad.
what are we
It,
doing?
he puts the other Patriots fans to shame, to be honest.
Yeah.
Just like the city of Glendale, Arizona, putting the state of Arizona to shame. Um, this is a quick game to cover. Rams, we expected to blow them out. Historically, they always blow them out. And again, in this game, they get blown out. The cool part about it is that my roommate was at this game in the suite next to the Rams. So he got to see Les Snead and he got to see Matthew Stafford's wife. He got to see Stan Kroenke just shoulder to shoulder to him. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, not a lot to say about the game itself. Michael Wilson had a huge game for the fantasy owners. Matthew Stafford played great. Puka Nacua continuing on a potential offensive player of the year conversation for them. But yeah, not a whole lot to say otherwise. 240 yards on the ground for the Rams to 51 on the ground, led by Jacoby Brissett for the Cardinals. So just a massive blowout.
Yeah, Rams score 45 points in this game on the road, which is their highest point total on the road since 2018, which is, I believe, that Jared Goff team that made it to the Super Bowl with Todd Gurley.
And I think they can make it again. This Rams team is unreal. So I like what I saw. Not a whole lot to say about this game, but blowouts are blowouts. Good for the Rams. They are probably going to win that one seed. And then we saw we saw a few teams die this week, but none other than the dynasty that was the Chiefs die on prime time. Texans, if you were smart enough to bet them at 3.5, like some did, um, beat the Chiefs in convincing fashion. Held Mahomes, had Mahomes throwing 3 picks, under 50% completion. Not a great game all around. And I think this might be the death of the Chiefs. Do you think, in that same regard, are the Chiefs officially dead now, given their latest loss?
Yeah, no, the Chiefs are definitely dead. This game I was a little bit hesitant. I did pick the Texans just with how the Chiefs have looked at home. They've been a completely different team. But this week on Sunday Night Football, Chiefs Kingdom turned into the Chiefs Village. I mean, my God, you have the Kansas City Chiefs only scoring 10 points. And then what happened to Travis Kelsey? I mean, it looked like the Washington Generals out there versus the Harlem Globetrotters when it was the Chiefs offense versus the Houston Texans defense. I mean, this guy is bobbling it in the air to Texans defenders, and he's handing over the ball and costing Patrick Mahomes an interception on his stat line now. And the Chiefs have just looked like this the past few years, and it's finally caught up to them where Patrick Mahomes throws for under 50%, and then they've finally kind of just fallen apart. They've gotten old, and then they just are not that same team that they have been. They're not winning those close one possession games that they had. And then when you are winning games by one score each year, it's going to be tough to kind of do that year in and year out. Especially their offense hasn't been as dynamic. It's honestly looked better at times this year than it has the past few seasons, but they haven't been winning close one score games, and they haven't been beating good teams with winning records. The only dynamic team they really beat all season long was the Indianapolis Colts, and then that Detroit Lions game on Sunday Night Football. But other than that, haven't really had any impressive wins for the Kansas City Chiefs team.
Yeah, and I think part of this has to do with the fact that they've made 3 Super Bowls in the last 5 years, give or take. Is it part of it could be, the wear and tear that they have with that extra basically season that they've had. But at the same time, it also is Chris Jones is in his 30s. Travis Kelsey is in his late 30s at this point. Probably the last season we see of Travis Kelsey. And then Mahomes, like part of the season, I don't think we can blame on him necessarily. But I think it's a culmination of the fact that all the people on this team have won a Super Bowl and they've reached the pinnacle of excellence in the NFL. And you're seeing a team that made it to 3 consecutive Super Bowls, and what that does to a team over the last few years. To now to this point, this team might finish with a losing record. You might see Travis Kelsey walk out that door. We might see Andy Reid retire. We might see Chris Jones leave. Like I think I don't know if the Chiefs themselves, like I don't think Patrick Mahomes necessarily is done winning Super Bowls necessarily, but I think we're entering into that era where just like we saw with the Patriots have that 10-year hiatus, I think we're going to see the same thing with Patrick Mahomes, where he's not going to win for a while. And I think now that's the door for the Josh Allens of the world, the Lamar Jacksons, the Drake Mays of the world to get their Super Bowl. But I think this is a culmination, and now it's officially the end of the Chiefs season.
And do you think there's a chance that Mahomes just leaves? Because with the Kansas City Chiefs, they haven't been able to replace Tyreek Hill. They haven't had too much success in the draft because anytime they draft a wide receiver, it seems like they get into a incident off the field, and they've had like a lot of off the field trouble there. Their offensive line is also getting older, so it seems like this team could be in a rebuild for a while. And if you're Patrick Mahomes, do you really want to put yourself through that when you could potentially force your way out the door and go to a team like San Francisco? Imagine Patrick Mahomes on the Minnesota Vikings with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison there. Like, I feel like it could be a situation where Mahomes decides, you know what? If Andy Reid is going to be gone, Travis Kelsey is going to be gone. Why don't I, instead of being like Tom Brady, being like Michael Jordan and stay? Why don't I take a page out of LeBron's book and just run away to a stacked team here that maybe is just missing their quarterback or has been a quarterback away for a little bit? Even a team like Atlanta, I feel like if you put him with Drake London and Bijan Robinson, and then you get a new coach in there, maybe Kevin Stefanski decides to leave, and then he can kind of be that new head coach for Patrick Mahomes. I feel like that could be a legitimate option for him. And then if he goes to a division like the NFC South, he could pretty much dominate it. Where you look at, well, we have Jim Harbaugh here now. We have Sean Payton in the division now with Denver. The Raiders are kind of a joke still, but like those are still two teams that are going to be very good, probably for the next 5 years. So if you're Mahomes and you don't have Andy Reid, you don't have Travis Kelsey, do you really want to stay in Kansas City long term? I don't think so, and I think he may explore the possibility of leaving next year.
I think it's possible. At this point, like you missed the playoffs, so that's something that's going to go against your GOAT debate because Brady never was eliminated from playoff contention and played a football game. For Mahomes, like he's originally from Texas. He's a guy that I think wants to probably stay with the Chiefs, but if they're going to be in this big rebuild and you're a guy that wants to win 7, 8 Super Bowls to get in that GOAT debate, he's a guy that is chasing Tom Brady. I think the Chiefs are probably at least 2 years away from fully rebuilding. We like really their only piece that they have is Rashee Rice on that offense. Their offensive line is going through shambles at this point, and you've tried to replace Tyreek Hill and you've failed multiple times now with whether it be Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, Sky Moore, all these other guys that haven't panned out. I can see a team like I know a team like Dallas who likes to make a big splash. Maybe they switch him with Dak Prescott. You get a younger quarterback, and you get another guy that's still in that MVP conversations with Dak Prescott. Like I can see him potentially going to the Cowboys. Potentially, I can see him going to a team like the Vikings, like you mentioned. I would love to see him on the Niners. That would be peak football. But if he's going to be chasing the GOAT, I think he has to leave Kansas City to do that.
Yeah, and yeah, if he still wants a chance, but I think like since he's going to miss the playoffs this year, it's over. Like
Oh, it's
Brady
over
never missed the
for
playoffs in his time, and Brady's also had worse wide receiver rooms than this and worse offenses, and still made the playoffs. Especially his last year when they lost to the Titans in the first round. Like he was like
those are
throwing
bad. Nikhil
Matt.
Harry.
He was throwing to like N'Keal Harry, Chris Hogan, like
Yeah.
40-year-old Danny Amendola.
I think it definitely kills the GOAT debate. But if you're Mahomes and you can win 6 Super Bowls, like you're going to be submitted at least at number 2 in that GOAT debate. And I think this generation might favor Mahomes in this case because they've grown up with him. But if he has to leave to do that, that might also ding his legacy because really, at least with like Peyton Manning, he was forced out of Indy. Drew Brees had to leave the Chargers and join the Saints. Like everybody leaves their team eventually. Mahomes now is going to be 31 next year. Maybe they keep him around, but ultimately, I think that the end of the Chiefs regime, like why not trade Mahomes and get 5 first-round picks, and then you get him in a position like with the Vikings, like with all the other teams we mentioned, where he can contend immediately instead of waiting until Bo Nix turns 35 next year, or Justin Herbert and the Chargers fizzle out. Like, I just think it's going to be better for him to leave if he wants to still have that GOAT debate.
Yeah, and this is like ending a 9-year run too at the top of their division. And even when the Patriots did miss the playoffs, they're 10-6. Like how often does that happen?
Yeah, and like the Patriots are definitely I think there's a lot of pieces there. Brady kind of took care of the offense. Belichick took care of the defense. But with Andy Reid now, he's had his health concerns. He's probably gone. Travis Kelsey, I think, definitely retires after this year. And then we might see Chris Jones gone. Like this isn't even going to be the Chiefs team that he's grown up with at this point. I think it's very possible.
Yeah, and I saw like a funny story that the Jets will check in. Yeah, I'll also check in with Kim Kardashian next week, and we'll see
Yeah,
what
we'll see how
happens.
the yeah. But it'll be interesting to see. Last game to cover was probably the most chaotic Monday Night Football game I've ever seen. Not only did Monster Inc. and Sully really deliver on that broadcast, but we had 7 turnovers between the Eagles and Chargers. I think both of them can properly be eliminated from any conversation of a Super Bowl this year. But we had Jalen Hurts with 4 interceptions. We had multiple fumbles in this game. We had the most Chargers play I've ever seen where they fumble the ball, they get the ball, they fumble the ball and get the ball back in the most Chargers fashion. And then ultimately it goes to overtime. I honestly thought we were in for a tie. And I think I actually texted you right before the interception, like, is this going to be another tie? And then, of
You
course,
did.
there's that interception. But this game is this the most chaotic Monday Night Football game of the year at this point?
Yeah, this game just made me angry because I hate both of these teams right now because the Philadelphia Eagles are just sleepwalking right now, and it just hasn't been a fun team to watch over the past few weeks. And then the Chargers have been just the Chargers. And so, like, both of these teams, it's like there's no real rivalry there. It's just one of those weird matchups on Monday Night Football. And then the fact that we had 7 turnovers in this game, 8 turnovers, something like that. Jalen Hurts turned the ball over 5 times. I mean, it was completely ridiculous. And then we picked the Ravens and the Steelers to tie. And funny enough, the last time we picked a tie, it wasn't that game, but there actually was a tie in that week. So it looked like it was on track to happen again in this game. And then Jalen Hurts turns the ball over at the end of it. And the Philadelphia Eagles, the problem is they're probably still going to make the playoffs. And it's fine if you have a Super Bowl hangover. You don't need to get to back to back to back Super Bowls each year, but it's just the way that both of these teams are doing it. Like, I don't want either of these teams to make the playoffs. And now one of them is 9-4 and pretty much a lock in the AFC. The Eagles still could lose their division to the Cowboys, but I doubt it, especially with Dallas. So, yeah, it's just overall just a frustrating game. It was an irritating game. I hated watching it, and the fact that they kept both turning the ball over. I'm like, this is cartoonish. It's like both teams are trying to lose the game as much as possible. And it literally was cartoonish because we had the stupid Monsters Inc. thing. I didn't watch it. Did you watch that
Uh,
at all?
I, I, we turned it on for like a minute, and we saw Mike Wazowski, and they did the same shit that they did with the Toy Story broadcast, where they can't just tell you who's getting the ball, especially because some of these people are in fantasy playoffs right now. And I mean, shout out Keenan Allen for the dud that he had because I won by .1. Thank you, Keenan Allen. He's in the Hall of Fame for my team, even though he's not on my team. But yeah, I mean, it's the same shit like they did with the Toy Story broadcast and the SpongeBob broadcast, where the biggest beef I have with that broadcast is not the fact that it's the broadcast and it's this cute, whatever Disney game. It's the fact that they don't just tell you who's getting the ball. Jalen Hurts to AJ Brown, Jalen Hurts to Saquon Barkley, Keenan Allen, Justin Herbert. It's Mike Wazowski to fucking Randall. It's like, just tell me who fucking catches the ball. I don't care that it's fucking Randall. I get it. It's the fucking Monsters Inc. broadcast, but for Christ's sakes. But now the Eagles have lost 3 straight. They have a pretty easy slate to fill out. Like they have the Raiders, Commanders twice, and then the Bills. But I just think like, can the NFL step in? We talked about the AFC North. Can we have the NFC East also be stepped in? The Eagles are going to lose in the first round now. I don't. After that game, I cannot trust the Eagles at all. And yeah, I think they still could probably lose 2 of the next 4 games. I think maybe the Commanders upset them, but it's just that was just a nightmare. 8 turnovers against the 2 of them. That was just disgusting.
Yeah, and it's like at the point with Jalen Hurts, I'm just like, whatever. I'm not even gonna criticize him because he won a Super Bowl and he's gotten to 2 Super Bowls, which most quarterbacks outside of Patrick Mahomes can't say that they've done. Matthew Stafford has won a Super Bowl right now, but it's really like Jalen Hurts. He's had the most playoff success right now, actively of any other quarterback besides Patrick Mahomes. And then Matthew Stafford's kind of in that old era. So I just don't really care enough about Jalen Hurts to criticize him at this point. It's like, whatever, man. Okay, you went out there and had a dud. Every other year, the Philadelphia Eagles are going to do this after they win a Super Bowl. It's like, okay, I guess they won a Super Bowl. First year with the new offensive coordinator. Kellen Moore isn't there. It's just, you still should win this game.
Bob Gino, thanks for stepping in.
Bob
Appreciate
Gino.
the If it comes down to Denver versus Patriots, when does Caitlin Clark come back? Bob Gino, biggest Caitlin Clark
Oh.
supporter in our streams regularly. So Bob Gino, thank you for the business. Make sure to follow.
If she comes back, it will definitely be Harry for the WNBA there, so that'll be an interesting situation. And then Bob Gino actually floated around before the season that we could potentially see a Patriots and Broncos AFC championship. And I will say we are one of the few shows to pick the Patriots to have a winning record before the season. We picked them to go 10-7, which a lot of people, even Patriots fans, were expecting them to miss the playoffs. So definitely W Brickyard so far there. And we floated
Yeah,
the idea around and it may happen.
and we said the Broncos were going to go 14-3 or something like that, 13 and
12 and
4.
5.
Yeah, we said they were going to go 12-5, which I think they're going to do better than that. But Broncos, we were right about the Broncos and we were right about the Patriots. So I guess we could say, and we were right about the Colts. We're going to be right about the Colts too. So another reason to watch the Brickyard. But we talked about week 14. We enter into week 15. We have 4 more weeks of the NFL, just 1 more month before we're watching Super Wild Card Weekend. So as we get into it here, we have our games here. We start off with Bucks and Falcons on Thursday Night Football, and the spread is 4.5 bucks.
$4.5. That's definitely a good spread, especially for Atlanta. Tampa Bay coming off of the loss to the Saints. I definitely think Atlanta is in for upset alert. I will take the Falcons to actually win this game because I remember last time they played on Thursday Night Football, Kirk Cousins and Darnell Mooney lost their minds. So I will take the Falcons to at least cover the spread, but I'm feeling a upset alert for the Falcons versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, especially with how injured they've been. They allowed the longest drive in the NFL, allowing the Saints to have the ball for 9 minutes and 41 seconds in the fourth quarter. So what is Bijan Robinson going to do, especially with Kirk Cousins, who just loves himself some Darnell Mooney? Now, here's a guy, as Chris Collinsworth would say.
You know, they're a field goal away from being losers of their last 5, that being the Bucks. So that 4.5 point spread, whether the Bucks win it or not, I can't expect them to beat them by more than 5. So I like the Falcons to cover the spread. I think the Bucks win this game because they have more on the line. But yet again, the Falcons did just get embarrassed by the Seahawks. And
Do you
I like
actually think they win? Like when you think about it, like close your eyes, Bucks, Falcons.
No, I honestly think we're going to see another Kirk Cousins Hall of Fame case because you remember that game. I remember that game all too well. Kirk Cousins throws for 500 yards. Baker Mayfield throws for, I think, 450. And then we see probably the greatest Kirk Cousins game we've ever seen in our lives. And especially coming off of that loss that they just had against the Seahawks, I think they can at least bet the spread. And for a guy that just hit a 5-leg parlay last week, I think 4.5 for the Falcons looks pretty sexy. I'm not going to lie. So I will take the Falcons to cover. Who cares who wins this game, honestly? I think I'm going to ride with you. I'm going to say the Falcons win this game as well. I think
Yeah.
the Bucks, I just can't trust the Bucks anymore.
I've also dominated Thursday Night Football. Like, I think I've hit every game for the past 2 months.
Yeah, you have. You just called the Cowboys game last week, and then
I
week
called the
13.
Bengals to beat the Ravens, too.
Yeah, so you've been right. So I'm going to ride with you. I'm going to pick the Falcons as well in an upset. Then we have AFC East clinching potential here for the Patriots. Everyone said, well, their coming out party was against the Bills. Everyone was like, wait, maybe this Patriots team is good. Maybe it isn't just their strength of schedule. The Bills in Foxborough are favorited at 1.5, which I think is very disrespectful. Patriots have won 10 straight games. They have a chance to clinch the playoffs and clinch the AFC East. And this is going to be a 30-degree game in Gillette. Patriots, like I said, they've been winning games convincingly. I saw them desecrate the Giants the last time we saw them. They have 2 weeks of preparation for the Bills, who they already beat this season. I'm taking the Patriots.
Yeah. And Stephon Diggs is still mad. And then you're going to have a bye week where all week Stephon Diggs is texting people, we got to beat the Bills. And then Mike Vrabel came out. He was doing his Monday morning on, I think he goes on like WEEI or 98.5, the Sports Hub Boston, and he has his little get together with the New England media and said, "This is our championship game at this point. This is the only game that matters." And now this week, he's going to say, "Look, guys, we beat them in Buffalo, which is pretty much going to be the last opportunity we have to beat them in Buffalo before they build their stadium there." And now they think that Buffalo is a 1.5 point favorite in our house, and we get 3 points. So you're essentially saying they're a 4.5 point favorite in Foxborough. No way. This has been a team that has owned the Bills. Josh McDaniels knows exactly how to play Sean McDermott in this situation. And the Cincinnati Bengals defense is pretty good, but typically, anytime the Buffalo Bills have one of these massive victories where it's 39-35, you have an epic meltdown like we saw on Thursday Night Football versus the Houston Texans. I'm not super impressed with a lot of the Buffalo Bills wins here, especially you have the Patriots defense where now Milton Williams can get a little bit more healthy there. Give me the Patriots in this one. And like you're gonna see that 1.5 point favorites. Like, we're the underdog in this game. Are you kidding me? Like, what does Josh Allen have on the media? Because each year the media is like, "Oh, Josh Allen is so good. This the year the Buffalo Bills are going to do it?" I mean, 5 years and him and Sean McDermott haven't won a Super Bowl. And when you go 5 years with a coach and a quarterback, they've been together, you don't win a Super Bowl. They never do it.
It's not going to happen. Also, to credit what you said here, if we look back when they beat the Chiefs earlier this year, what happened the following week? They get annihilated by the Dolphins, 30-13. And then they face the Bucks where they have this big 6 touchdown performance from Josh Allen. What happens the next week? They lose to the Texans. Now they just had this big game against the Bengals and they face their division foe for the AFC East. I think we know what's going to happen. Usually, when we see these patterns in the NFL, we hit on them. So I'm going to take the Patriots in here as well. History has repeated itself. Patriots are also 5-2 at home. I like the Patriots in this game as well. And then bring your sweaters for this next game. Chicago versus Cleveland. Chicago's favored at 7.5 in this game, and that looks pretty sexy to me, believe it or not, because Shedeur Sanders last week looked good. The Bears did not. Caleb Williams is completing 55+% of his passes right now. And I do think the Bears, after that loss, could be reeling here. I like the Browns to cover. I will take the Bears to still win this game, but that's an interesting spread. 7.5. I like the Browns to cover here. I think they lose by a touchdown.
Yeah, and you know the thing with the Bears is even when they were winning games, a lot of them were trailing against the Giants. We have an epic comeback in the fourth quarter. You have a lot of close one possession wins that they had. So for me, like even though you are playing up against this Cleveland Browns team, Cleveland has been pretty solid covering against the spread this season. So I do think this could be a game that could be competitive solely for the Browns defense and Shedeur Sanders giving them a little bit of juice here. So if they can slow down the run game and really make Caleb Williams throw, like he has back-to-back weeks where he hasn't been able to get over the 200-yard mark, and that's not a good sign, especially since we're getting into real football. So, and then I'm also cold just thinking about either being in Cleveland or Chicago right now. So
6 degrees at game time is what they're predicting.
6. Oh,
6.
oh.
Bring your sweaters for this game. That's tough. That's not cute whatsoever. Granted, both of these are cold weather teams. It shouldn't affect them too much, but 6 degrees is 6 degrees. That's pretty fucking cold, if you ask me. So I think I like Cleveland here, especially because let's just look at how the Bears have played this year, right? So the Raiders, one of the worst teams in the NFL, 25-24, they win. The Commanders, another 3-10 team, 25-24. And then they play a close game against the Saints. The Giants game was 24-20. A losing team that is the Vikings, they win 19-17. These are all games that they probably should, if they are the 9-4 team that they say they are, they should have blown them out. In this case, they don't. I think we see the Bears come back down to earth, and I think the Browns potentially win this game.
Yeah, and I think Jackson Dart got hurt in that game too.
He did. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just think, yeah, the Bears have played close against bad competition, and I think the Browns are in sight to cover that spread.
It'd be the most Bears thing to lose this game, fall out of playoff contention after being the number one seed, and then you lose to the Browns, and that's the reason why you don't make the playoffs. Like, would that be the most Chicago Bears thing to do ever. If we're talking about the Bears in the realm of possibility of them being a similar team like the Chargers.
Remember a couple years ago when the Jags were the 1 seed for like a week and then they proceeded to lose out?
Yeah.
Caleb Williams, another guy that's the prince that's promised, in a situation with a perpetually losing franchise. They have a pretty tough slate ahead of them following the Browns game too. If they lose to the Browns, I think they're going to lose out, miss the playoffs. Maybe we see Trevor Lawrence 2.0. Crazier things have happened. That's all I'm saying. Whether they are the Jaguars of a few years ago or not, prove me wrong, Chicago. That is what I will say. But I like the Browns there. Then we get Ravens and Bengals for the second time in 3 weeks. Last time the Bengals took care of business against them. Ravens are favored at 2.5 in Cincinnati. After what I saw 2 weeks ago, I don't know about you, but that Ravens team looks pretty tired, pretty banged up. I don't trust their defense either. I like the Bengals here, especially because they're still vying for that playoff spot. They win this game, they're only a few games back. I think I like the Bengals to sweep the Ravens.
Yeah, I think Joe Burrow's mad, especially after those 2 ridiculous turnovers that he had with the Bills, pretty much losing the game for his team. So I think he's going to want to redeem himself. And the Ravens offense just hasn't looked good outside of Derrick Henry. There's nothing you can really point to outside of him as a positive, except for Derrick Henry being an ageless wonder. So give me the Bengals to win in this game as well.
All right. And then a couple more 11 o'clock slates to cover. We have Chargers and Chiefs. This could literally be the actual death of the Chiefs if they lose this game. It's in Arrowhead. It is going to be 21 degrees. They are favored at 4.5 against the Chargers. Last time we saw them, the Chargers took care of business in San Paulo in a close game to start the season. The Chargers, I think, have had a better overall season. I think that's obvious to say. Their defense is better. However, Justin Herbert is banged up. So I think I still like the Chargers to win this game, though, believe it or not. It's a 4.5 point spread. I would take the Chargers to cover this game. But this is ultimately the Chiefs season. I just don't think they have it mustered up here. I'll take the Chargers.
Yeah, my gut is telling me Chiefs. Last time these two teams played each other, I was in Utah in Salt Lake City, and that was back in Week 1 on a Friday night. So I will take the Chiefs to win this one. I can't see them going out on this much of a whimper. I think they'll still have a sense of urgency in this game. And Houston is just a different animal right now, where that game versus the Eagles was so ridiculous. I just have a hard time picking the Chargers right now. So give me the Chiefs in this one. Chargers can still make the playoffs. And, the Chargers don't necessarily need to win this one. They just need to not lose this game by 4.5, which I think is possible.
And I think that's attainable. Now, there's a couple of really bad games to cover in this 1 o'clock
4
slate.
o'clock.
No, this is 1 o'clock still. We actually have a lot of 1 o'clock slates here. One of them being a battle of the potential number 1 overall pick, Giants and Commanders. Giants are favored at 2.5 in East Rutherford. Commanders, they just got shut out and pretty much dead. I actually don't know if the Commanders are even going to show up on Sunday because I don't even know if they have a team anymore based from what I saw last week. I think the Giants win this. Giants right now are the number 1 overall pick. They have a good enough roster that they probably shouldn't be 2-11 right now, but they're a better team than their record shows. I like the Giants, especially with what I saw from the Commanders. Commanders are dead. Giants, I think they're going to be good next year. So yeah, I like them to beat them at home.
Yeah, give me the Giants as well in this game. Commanders, you just got shut out versus JJ McCarthy and the Vikings. I think Jackson Dart will be able to cook a little bit in this game. So that's all I need to say about that there.
And then if you're lucky enough to, not be glued to your television on that game, we have Eagles Raiders. And the Eagles are favored at 11.5. So even if they do blow out the Raiders, just know Pete Carroll's got something up his sleeve in the event that
trap.
11
it's a trap.
That's a big spread. The Eagles offense has struggled pretty hard the last few weeks. I like the spread there of the Raiders. I think the Raiders cover. Eagles, they've lost a lot of games straight, and I don't know if I can pick the Raiders confidently to win this game, but I can definitely pick them to break the hearts of Barstool a second week in a row. I will take the Raiders to cover. Eagles probably still win, though.
Oy vey, every time I bet against the Raiders, I'm losing my money. It's truly horrible, and that's exactly what's gonna be happening again because we have the Kenny Pickett revenge game potentially with Geno Smith going out in the last game, and then Brock Bowers been cooking a little bit the past few weeks. You have Ashton Genty, who's still there. And I mean, for a rookie, he's still top five as far as total touchdowns for rookies. And I don't think he's really gotten a fair shake. And I feel like people have been unfairly just shitting all over this guy for no reason this year. But I think Genty's been pretty good. This rookie season kind of reminds me of Najee Harris's rookie season that he had with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I do think that they will cover that spread. And then Philadelphia, will they lose 4 games in a row? I don't think so, and I'm not gonna pick it, but I'll take the Raiders to cover.
Yeah, I will do the same. And then Jags and Jets. Jags are favored at 12.5 in Jacksonville. I don't know if I would touch this game either, gambling wise, but the Jags are ascending. They want to win that division. I think they should win this game. But anytime I see a spread that large, I'm always eerie. So I'm not going to bet this game. But Jags and Jets, Jags should surely win this game. Surely.
Yeah, and the Jags have scored 30 plus points or close to it the past 6 weeks in a row, I believe. And I don't think that the Jets will be able to crack 2 touchdowns. So honestly, in this game, I think the Jags are a safe bet, especially at home. Typically, you see those cold weather teams struggle in Florida once you get into December. So I will take the Jaguars.
All right. And then speaking of bad teams, the Texans are 9.5 point favorites against the Cardinals. Cardinals just coming off of a blowout loss to the Rams. And yeah, I mean, the Texans also vying for that division, playing their best defense. CJ Stroud and Nico Collins have been electric. And the Cardinals, like Jacoby Brissett, will probably throw for 400 yards, but they'll still score 17. So safe to say the Texans are going to win this game.
I know Jacoby Brissett throws for 500 yards and you still only score 13 points. How does that make sense? Like,
Like we always talk about like the that Oz guy that always comes into those NFL camps and does magic for them.
yeah,
Brissett does magic for anybody betting the over on his passing, but he he's averaging like 300 yards a game, but yet at the same time this team doesn't score. Like he had like 300 yards in the Rams game, but they only scored 14. Like where do all these yards come from? What happens? Where does all the points go? They just
yeah.
disappear. And that's the magic of Jacoby Brissett. He's like Jameis Winston without the aura. So RIP the Cardinals. It's a tough showing. This might be the last game of Jonathan Gannon potentially in Arizona, but Texans should surely win this one.
Yeah, they should win this one. I'll take them.
Okay, and then any other 1 o'clock slates to cover? No. All right, let's get into this game then. Rams, Lions, Matt Stafford, Jared Goff. Rams are favored at 5.5. Lions can't really afford to lose another game. Obviously, we know the headline: Matt Stafford, Jared Goff, who won the trade, yada yada. NFL talking points, but Rams they have an impressive win this past week. Rams also an impressive win, 5.5 point spread in SoFi. How do we feel about the Lions in this game?
Yeah, I feel pretty good about the Lions in this game, especially since they get the extra time to prepare. However, I do think the Rams are just on a different level right now. And this is one of those situations where my gut is telling me that the Detroit Lions are going to win, especially since they're in win now mode. The Rams can't afford to lose this game, and it's not going to be a big deal. And, Jameer Gibbs is playing at a very high level right now. He's looked like the best running back in the league to close out the year with 3 touchdowns last week. Jamison Williams has been on fire. You now have Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's just how well is that Detroit Lions defense going to hold up? Because you have seen certain times where Puka Nacua and your running back are putting the ball on the ground in back-to-back weeks, sometimes in the same game. So the turnover bug has been an issue for the Rams at times. So I will take the Rams with all of that. But I hope the Lions win. So this is one of those situations where I'm just bracing for impact, picking the Rams to win. And the Lions can still make the playoffs because if the Bears lose to the Packers and they beat the Bears in Week 18, that would pretty much lock up the 7 seed for you. So I do still think you can make the playoffs if you lose this game. But I think the Lions should have more of a sense of urgency to beat the Rams in this one.
I think they'll definitely get up for them. The Rams are a great team. The biggest thing that I see currently when I just look at the betting odds is that 80% of the money is on the over of 55.5. So maybe look at the under in this game. Both teams
Yeah.
defensively have been pretty solid. Lions, their defense is kind of a bend not break type of defense, but I think given that over under, I do think this could be a lower scoring game than we think. But
Yeah.
Lions with the urgency, I'm going to take the Lions to win this game. I think that they can afford, the Lions can't really afford to lose another game. So the urgency there is going to be pretty critical for them, and especially the animosity with Stafford and everything else. I think they're going to wake up for that game.
Yeah, and Stafford, I feel like almost feels bad for the Lions. So if he can help them make the playoffs, he might actually.
Yeah, I think that too, but it'll be interesting to see. I think I want the Lions to win, so I'm going to take them to win, but I do think the Rams are the better team and they should win, but hopefully they don't. Niners, Titans. Titans just won their first game since October against the Browns. They faced the Niners, 12.5 point spread in Santa Clara. Titans, we had fun. You got your second win. Good for you. It's all over. You got your second win. You're good to go. You're probably going to still be the number 1 overall pick. Niners are going to go in there and take care of business. Easy said.
Yeah. Do you think they cover that 12 points? I think they should.
Yeah, I don't know. The Titans are not a team that I want to. There's like certain teams that I don't want to bet on. I don't want to bet on the Jets. I don't want to bet on the Titans. Those are just one of those teams I'm like, I don't know if I can trust the Titans to muster up. I mean, Cam Ward has 9 touchdowns in 13 games. Like, I just don't know if they're going to score enough points. And the Niners, I think, can definitely score on this Titans defense. So I'm just not touching that game at all. I would avoid it. So I will take the Niners to I'm not going to touch the spread on this game, but Niners should definitely win. And then speaking of a team that just came off of some wins, Saints just won their 3rd game of the year against the Bucks. They faced the Panthers, who, let's not forget what they did not too long ago. They did beat the Panthers 17-7 just about a month ago. Can they strike iron twice and beat them again? Panthers are favored at 2.5, but do we see a potential Saints upset in back-to-back weeks to their division foes?
Is this in Carolina or New Orleans?
New Orleans.
Yeah, it's in New Orleans. That'll definitely be a tough one. I do think that the Panthers smell blood in the water. They have a sense of urgency, and their offense is actually starting to come together. And Bryce Young has actually been consistent where he's throwing for multiple touchdowns now. He's had some big games where he's thrown for 400 yards, and I think you have a full bye week to really hone in and prepare for the New Orleans Saints. I'll take them to win, and I actually think they're inevitably going to come out and take the South here away from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So I am going to be riding with the Panthers the rest of the season in the South.
So I would totally take the Panthers in this game, but they lost to the Bills. They beat the Packers. They lost to the Saints. They beat the Falcons. They lost to the Niners. They beat the Rams. Lose to the Saints. I mean, patterns are patterns. They exist in the NFL for a reason. They have been consistently.
They lost to the bye week. They lost to the bye week. Now they'll beat the Saints. How about that?
Maybe, just maybe. I don't know. Patterns are patterns. I think I'm going to pick the Saints just for the simple fact that I see a pattern here, and patterns, I don't think they'll deceive me this time. I will take the Saints to upset them in this game. And then, before I talk about game of the week, let's talk about Colts and Seahawks. We could see the return of the prince that is promised, Phillip Rivers. You miss Phillip Rivers? You remember 2020? You remember the vintage Chargers teams with him and Antonio Gates? Well, lucky enough for you, the Colts, who have lost 4 of the last 5 games, go to Seattle, who are 13.5-point favorites, largest spread of the week in Seattle, and they've been great at home. Colts have been bad away. Yeah, Seahawks should blow them out.
Yeah, I'm feeling 44-13.
That's good for you because that's a 42.5-point over-under. So 44-10. I think we're going to see the Seahawks cover that.
Will cover the over on their own.
Yeah.
Rashid Shaheed goes for 200 yards. Like,
you know what they say, snakes ain't always in the water. Sharks aren't always in the water. Snakes ain't always in the sand. So Seahawks, they should blow them out. And then the game of the week, at least in the 4 o'clock slate, we have Packers and Broncos in Denver. 2.5 point spread are favored by for the Packers. And Broncos, I do think, are due for a loss. They have won 10 straight games, just like the Patriots. They've played a lot closer to their competition. They had a close game against the Raiders a few weeks ago. They played a close game against the Raiders, at least spread-wise, last week. So I do think the Broncos are due for a loss. The Packers, Toyotathon, Jordan Love. I like the Packers to win this game.
Yeah, like the Packers as well. Toyotathon love is a real thing. And then I left the Broncos off my top five this week. Like you have a one possession game versus the Raiders. You're pretty much winning every single game by one possession. And it's kind of similar to what the Bears are doing. And now you're going to run into a Green Bay Packers team with a complete offense, actually a competent head coach. And then Jordan Love here, who's starting to turn it on. Josh Jacobs is turning it on now as well. Christian Watson looking like one of the sneakiest wide receivers in the league, where not a lot of people are talking about what he's doing, but he looks eerily similar to what Debo Samuel was doing when he started to come alive in San Francisco here. And then you have your Dontavian Wicks of the world, Jaden Reed starting to get involved again, Luke Musgrave starting to step up with no Tucker Craft here. So I'm just going to take the team with the better quarterback at this point. And then, Matt LaFleur after Thanksgiving into December has been really good. You remember the run the table year with Aaron Rodgers, where they go out there and then make the playoffs when it seemed like they were dead. And the Packers have kind of done this every single year, rope a dope through the first 10 weeks of the season. Then once we get past Thanksgiving, they turn into a Super Bowl team. So I will take Jordan
Yeah.
Love just because him versus Bo Nix, like, give me a break. Bo Nix is like 35 at this point, and it's his second year in the league.
Yeah, I agree. I also think like I mentioned, the Broncos. Let's look at some of their games this year. They beat the Titans by 1 score. They beat the Eagles by 1 score. Okay, that makes sense. They beat the Jets 13-11 in one of the ugliest games of the year. They beat the Giants by 1 point. They beat the Texans. They beat the Raiders by 1 point. They beat the Chiefs by 1 point. They beat the Commanders by 1 point, and they beat the Raiders by a touchdown. So all of these wins are all 1 score, with the exception of the Bengals game. So, and the Cowboys game. So ultimately, like, I just think that they're due for a loss. Not because I think the Broncos are a bad team, but all these 1 score games, surely 1 score games should go the other way. And that's why I think the Packers win this game.
Yeah, you've kind of locked up your division too. So
Yeah, you're good to go. Now, prime time on Sunday Night Football, we have Vikings and Cowboys. Cowboys are favored at 5.5 at home. And I will say, Cowboys are 4-1-1 at home. Maybe that's 5-1. Maybe that's 4-2. We don't know. Ties are weird in the NFL. But the Vikings, they just got done annihilating the Commanders. And the Cowboys, maybe I'm striking gold twice with my fool's gold again. But Cowboys just came back down to earth. They get killed by the Lions. Now the Cowboys fans are like, you're right. We're not making the playoffs. Expectations have reset for the Cowboys again. They still potentially can win that division. They're good at home, and it's prime time. I like the Cowboys to win this game.
yeah, and the Cowboys should win this game, but overall, I feel like the Vikings have kind of owned the Dallas Cowboys number. And then we saw when the Cowboys were really coming alive earlier in the season, they were slated as one of the better teams in the NFL. This offense is unstoppable with George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb. And then they had back-to-back weeks where they kind of looked middling. They didn't have the best games in the world. And now Minnesota has had some success versus Dallas. It hasn't been Dak Prescott's best team that he's gone up against. So I do think that the Vikings have a chance to actually make this a game and cover. And I'm actually feeling an upset versus Dallas in this one.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to go against the grain. I'm going to pick the Cowboys to win this game. But I do think prime time, this game could be closer. That spread, I'm going to pass over. But Cowboys should win. I think it's going to come down to Brendan Aubrey to end the game.
Yeah, 60-yard field goal.
Yeah. And then Monday Night Football. This is a game I do actually feel fairly confident in. Dolphins Steelers in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh just got a big win against the Ravens, but we know what is inevitable for the Steelers, and that is the winning season that is 9-8 or 8-1. They face the Dolphins in this game, but it is 21 degrees to start this game. And so because of that, Steelers, I think they're gonna win this game. That 3-point spread, I think they're gonna hit exactly. I think it's a push. But 21 degrees, Tua is what, 0-8 in the cold in his career. And I think this is officially the death of the Dolphins. So I take the Steelers in this one.
Yeah, and Devon A-Chain gets banged up with a rib injury in the last game versus the Jets as well. So I just think as long as the Steelers take care of the ball, they should be able to win this one as well. But I kind of am feeling that Miami could win this one. So I do think this is going to be like a competitive game. But again, just another ugly Monday night matchup similar to the Eagles and Chargers. Like, who cares about the Eagles versus the Chargers? Like, I get they're two like playoff teams technically, but it's just a weird matchup. And similarly to the Steelers and Dolphins, like no one wants to watch this. No one's clamoring to see Pittsburgh and Miami on Monday Night Football. Like, it's just another strange matchup.
Yeah, and the matchups, like I feel like the primetime games this year have been lacking. And this game, like, do I want to see Tua throw for another 3 interceptions and lead the league in interceptions? Do I want to see the Steelers have a 20-17 win? Like, I just don't think there's better games, especially like we have Lions and Rams, for example. That's a great game right there. We have Broncos and Packers. Like, why not bump this to the 4 o'clock slate and put somebody on prime time that actually has playoff implications? Packers and Broncos, for example, if the Broncos lose, they might not make the number 1 seed. The Packers, if they win this game, very much in the mix. Like, pick these games that are like, why not use their flex powers more? I just don't understand. I know they just flexed the Patriots and Ravens game for next week, but can we make this game like just use your flexing powers to your full capabilities and flex out these games that nobody cares about?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the NFL definitely has to use their flex powers more, and that's something they should look at going forward. I get it's inconvenient if you buy tickets, but what can you do?
You'll
The
be
show
fine.
must go on.
Show must go on. But that is all the games in week 15. You have been recapped and previewed for this upcoming week. I do have the playoff picture as of right now. We've been previewing the current standings and seeing if there's any changes made. With another week of football on our belt, I have it right in front of us here. And let's talk about the AFC to start. The
Cool.
Chiefs have now lost. The Ravens have now lost. And as of right now, the playoffs ended today. The Broncos would be the 1 seed, given their conference record against compared to the Patriots. Patriots would be the 2 seed facing off against the Texans in the first round. That'd be interesting. And then we'd face Jags and Buffalo as the 3 and 6 seeds, Steelers and Chargers for that 4 and 5 seed. On the outside looking in, we have Phillip Rivers and the Colts, which feels weird to say. And then the Ravens, Chiefs, and Dolphins all at 6 and 7. And the Bengals on the outside looking in at 4 and 9.
Yeah, yeah, definitely go over that. I'm gonna run to the bathroom, but I'll be right back if you want to just kind of go over some of the scenarios right now.
Yeah, so right now, as he runs to the bathroom, a little potty break for Marcus here. But so the way that I look at it now, Patriots have the easiest strength of schedule moving forward. They face the Bills, Ravens, Jets, and Dolphins moving forward. I think that this is a scenario. If they beat Buffalo, not only do they clinch the AFC East, but then you have a banged up Ravens team on prime time next week. I think they get the win there. And then they finish out with Jets and Dolphins, where they're essentially probably going to be resting starters, especially in that Dolphins game. I think the Patriots do take that 1 seed. I think the Broncos, if you watched our preview a few minutes ago, lose to the Packers. With the Patriots winning, they should jump there. In the AFC South, I do think the Jags are a good enough team, especially when we look at the rest of their schedule. They have the Jets, the Colts with Phillip Rivers, who I don't believe in, or the Titans. Ultimately, their next tough game is against the Broncos, and if they win that, I think they all but win the AFC South. So I think they're good to go. Texans, I like them in that wild card position as well. Chargers should stay where they are. Bills should stay where they are. Maybe they jump one another, maybe they don't. But all the teams on the outside looking in, the Colts, you don't have your quarterback. Daniel Jones is out for the season. Riley Leonard's banged up. You have a 44-year-old Phillip Rivers who looked old 5 years ago. How does he look now at 44? I think he's out of the mix. And then the Ravens with Lamar Jackson. I just think that team just doesn't look like they're running on full cylinder. and the Chiefs are just out of the playoff picture entirely. So I think right now it's going to stay the way it is, and I don't see anybody jumping any of these teams. So I kind of recapped here. Just I think the playoff picture right now is pretty much identical. I don't think the Ravens are going to jump the Steelers after their loss. I don't think the Bengals are going to crawl back. So I think what we see right now, maybe the seeding changes a little bit, but I think it's going to stay pretty much the same in the AFC.
Yeah, and I think the Chargers, the unfortunate thing is they may stay the 5th seed. So I feel like the worst case scenario for the NFL is Chargers and Steelers in the first round, because either one of those teams that wins, like I I don't think the NFL would want to see either of those teams in the divisional round. And then we'll probably have Texans and Jaguar, or we'll probably have the Texans and Jaguars flip, in my opinion, and then we'd have Texans and Bills in the first round, and then probably have Jaguars and Broncos, or Jaguars and Patriots in the first round. I think Trevor Lawrence versus Bo Nix in the first round would be peak NFL cinema.
Yes, talk about that's a super card wild card weekend if I've ever seen one. I said when you were away that I think the Patriots are going to claim the 1 seed, especially when the Broncos fall to the Packers this week. And the Patriots' remaining schedule with the Ravens, who are basically the way that they've been playing, Lamar not 100%. I think they win that game. Then it's the Dolphins and Jets afterwards. I think the Patriots should claim that 1 seed. Broncos should be the 2 seed. 3 seed should be the AFC South, and then the AFC North. I think the Steelers, it's their division to lose at this point.
Yeah, and they really only need to win one more game to win the division. So you just pretty much have to beat Miami, and then Cincinnati won't be able to win the division, and then Baltimore. I don't know. Their offense just doesn't look right now.
Yeah, so I think it's just I think all these other teams that are on the outside looking in, Philip Rivers and the Colts, I just don't see them making. I think they're going to lose out. So that being said, the NFC looks a lot more exciting. The Rams right now are in the position to be the 1 seed, although the Seahawks could still technically jump them. They're both tied, but they do have that head to head against the Seahawks. The Packers, with that win, could get it very interesting. They could jump the Rams as well, especially if the Rams lose to the Lions. The Eagles should win the NFC East, but um, anything could happen. They've lost 3 straight games. They don't look great. And then Bucks and Panthers could potentially jump one another. But good Lord, I mean, I think the Panthers might actually take the Bucks out of the playoffs with the way the Bucks are playing, the way they're injured. I just don't know if I can trust the Bucks at this point.
Yeah, and we usually don't see teams like this rally at the end of the year. And Emeka Ibuka was a top wide receiver earlier in the year, and now he's dropping some of those same passes where he was making some ridiculous catches there. So just that, and their defense allowing the Saints to drive 9 minutes and 41 seconds, which is the longest drive given up. It just doesn't feel right with this team right now, and I've seen some electricity with the Panthers right now. So I do think the Panthers are going to jump them. And then I like my hypothesis that I floated around where we could see Sam Darnold in Carolina in a potential situation where the Seahawks have a great season similar to the Minnesota Vikings last year, come up short versus the Rams, aren't able to win their division even though they could technically be a number 1 seed in any other division, and then lose to the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are comparing the Seahawks to that Minnesota Vikings team last year. I think the Seahawks are a better team than that Vikings team, but I mean, they're right now they're glued to the 5 seed. They just happen to be in the same division as the Rams, who are the best team in the league, just like with the Lions last year. I think that's exactly what we're going to see. Bucks, they're too banged up. Panthers are going to jump them. Eagles and Cowboys are interesting. It would be funny to see the Cowboys win that division and continue on that consecutive streak of a non-consecutive winner, but they have a lot to climb. 6-6, they really can only they pretty much have to win out, and the Eagles have to essentially win maybe one more game, and then the Cowboys would jump them. But I just don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah. And yeah, I don't think that's going to happen either. Philadelphia pretty much only needs to win one more game as well. But I feel like they're just going to be one of those teams that they're going to probably face the 49ers in the first round. And that'll be a really interesting matchup because that'll kind of be the tale of the overperforming team that's just been really well coached versus the underperforming team. And you have Saquon Barkley and Christian McCaffrey, who have both kind of taken a step back, even though they both look dynamic and they're still both very good NFL players. They're just not the same players that they've been the past couple years with their respective teams. So I think that would actually be a really interesting matchup in the first round. And then I do think that the Lions are going to pass the Bears. I just have that feeling where the Bears are just the Bears still, and they're due kind of for a collapse at the end of the season here. We have back to back weeks. Caleb Williams hasn't thrown over 200 yards. I don't like that. And, the Lions play the Rams, sure, but they also play the Bears at the end of the year, and the Bears play the Packers, and I think they're going to lose to the Packers again as well. And I think Cleveland is a potential upset alert for them as well, especially with how Caleb Williams has been playing.
Yeah, I agree. I do think the Lions are going to jump them. They're playing with some urgency, and the Bears, honestly, I think at 9-4, like that record already is. I don't think they're a 9-4 good team. So I think that they're due to have some losses, especially like we mentioned previously. The Bears have the Packers, Niners, and Lions all after that Browns game, which they could very well lose to. So
Yeah. And I
I
think
don't
they
think they
lose
beat.
to the Niners at least.
I think they also lose to the Packers potentially. Packers just have it over their head. They've lost what 15 consecutive games, you said, and then the Lions. Last time they faced the Lions destroyed them. Granted, that's week 2, but Lions, they have that chip on their shoulder. They have that animosity. I think they could potentially lose their last 3 games, and if they don't beat the Browns, they might lose out their last 5 games, which would be pretty Bears-esque. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, and I just don't think I get some people are like, well, Caleb Williams hasn't turned the ball over that much. I think he only has like 7 or 8 turnovers so far this season. The problem is not Caleb Williams turning it over. The problem is Caleb Williams leading his team down the field at the end of the game and throwing for more than 200 yards and completing more than 50 or 60% of his passes. If your quarterback is completing under 60% of his passes, that's a problem, especially when it's really cold. And then the Lions have that experience. They have the playoff experience as well. And then if the Lions get the 7th seed, that would give us Lions and Packers in the first round, Eagles and 49ers. And then we'll probably see Seattle and Carolina. And those could all be really interesting matchups as well. And then say the Rams lose to the Lions and they lose to the Seahawks because the Seahawks, had 4 turnovers last time they played LA. I could still see a scenario where Seattle gets the number 1 seed.
Yeah, I think it's possible. The Seahawks schedule, I just had it up here. They have the Colts with Philip Rivers. If they can beat the Rams this time around and not throw 4 interceptions, they end it with Panthers and Niners. So it's still a pretty tough slate for the Seahawks. For the Rams, they face the Lions, Seahawks, Falcons, and Cardinals. So Rams have a bit of an easier stretch the last half of it. It's really going to come down to that primetime game with the Seahawks on Thursday Night Football 1 week from now.
So if the Rams lose to the Lions this week and they lose to the Seahawks, San Francisco could technically win the division because they beat the Rams already and they have the better in conference record. So
Yeah,
technically, the division is still in play for the San Francisco 49ers, especially they play Seattle in the last week of the season?
they face them on Thursday Night Football week 16. So next week.
That's a
That's going to
huge
be
game.
that's a massive game. So the Seahawks, I mean, it was a close game, and Sam Darnold threw 4 picks. Say Sam Darnold throws 2 picks in that game. What's the different outcome? I think the Seahawks should split with them. So I think we should see a split between the both of them. And then the Rams should beat the Falcons and Cardinals.
Yeah, they should definitely beat both those teams. But yeah, the Rams, if they relax versus Detroit on Sunday, that'll definitely be a tough matchup. But if they lose that game, then it's very much in play for San Francisco to still win that division. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah. It's going to be if the Niners get the 1 seed, that might honestly give Kyle Shanahan the coach of the year. if you can get the 1 seed with all of those injuries, I like what I've seen with Mike Vrabel. Don't get me wrong, and I think he should still win Coach of the Year. But if San Francisco gets the 1 seed with everything that they've had on their plate, with Brock Purdy going down, with Mac Jones filling in, and then everything else that's been on their plate, and they get the 1 seed, give Kyle Shanahan the Coach of the Year.
Yeah, no, I agree. And especially like you had Mac Jones there working through it. The only thing is the Patriots, a lot of people in the media didn't even have them having a winning record, and the fact that they will have the number one seed in the AFC, that'll definitely be a interesting battle. But I feel like the coach of the year is definitely really competitive, especially with what Liam Cohen is doing with the Jacksonville Jaguars, how D'Amico Ryans righted the ship, how somehow Aaron Glenn surpassed expectations with the New York Jesus Jets, where he won not one but two, three games with the Jets. I mean, that's a big accomplishment for him, especially with Justin Fields.
Yeah, and these are games where he wasn't even throwing for 50 yards. So miracles do happen, just not to the Jets often. So could be fun. So I'm excited. The Niners could definitely still get that top seed. Maybe even the Packers. Packers are still in play as well. But I think if the Rams win this week, they should have that 1 seed, most likely.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I feel like the worst game of the playoffs is has been the 4 and the 5 in both conferences. I feel like there's always one team that ends up being the 4 seed that ends up being much worse um, than the fifth seed. Last year was the Chargers, but the Texans ended up winning it. But you have these games like it was the Bucks versus the Eagles one year, where it's an absolute beatdown. When Tampa Bay played Dallas with Tom Brady's last year, that was a pretty tough game as well.
Yeah, I agree. And I think like right now it's Steelers Chargers. Steelers, who knows how that game goes? Justin Herbert in the playoffs, I can't really bet for on his side, but I do think the Chargers in the current state of things should blow out the Steelers in that game. And then Bucks and Seahawks, the Seahawks would kill the Bucks right now.
Yeah, I think the NFL like needs to have a rule where if you're like 3 games worse than the next best team and you win your division and that's how you make the playoffs, you don't.
Yeah. Because like the thing is they're 7-6, and right now they wouldn't be in the playoffs in any scenario. They'd be 2 games behind the 7th seed right now if they weren't in that division. And then if you go in the AFC, they're still not in the playoff picture. They'd still be behind the Colts right now if they were in that god awful NFC South. So and the same goes with the Steelers. The Steelers are in the same boat. Like those two divisions are just bad. And maybe it's shifting the divisions around. Maybe it's changing the way they do it. Maybe it's more like the NBA where it's the top 7 teams in that AFC. But I don't know. I think we're setting up with 2 bad potential playoff matchups, but we'll see how it goes and who ends up playing it out.
Yeah, but I think the NFC is still very much in play where the AFC is kind of set in stone. Really, the only question I have in the AFC is are the Jaguars or the Texans going to win their division? And that's pretty
Yeah.
much it.
Yeah. And that's kind of the main piece of the pie there. But that's our playoff picture. We've recapped and previewed everything. Before we end our show, what have you been watching of late? I know you've been recently watching The Sopranos.
Yeah, almost done the Sopranos, so I'll do a full breakdown of that show once I finish it. I am about like 6 episodes into the 21 episodes of the 6th season, but I watched my first Christmas movie this week. Ended up watching, I don't know if you've seen this one, Christmas with the Cranks with Tim Allen. And
No.
it's kind of an interesting movie. I like the concept where if you live in like a subdivision or a HOA, you kind of have like these rules where everyone has to have their Christmas lights up. And since his daughter is supposed to be in South America, him and his wife are like, okay, why don't we go ahead and just cancel Christmas this year and take a cruise? We'll fly out on Christmas because it's the cheapest day, one of the cheapest days to travel, and then just take a cruise. And the rest of the movie is pretty much just their entire neighborhood trying to get them to decorate their house. Um, I don't know. Have you seen Malcolm in the Middle?
Yeah.
Dewey is in this movie, and he's like one of the kids harassing Tim Allen to put up Frosty. Like every house in the neighborhood has a Frosty the Snowman on it. And then Dan Aykroyd is also in this movie, but you have like Tim Allen who He turns down the Boy Scouts from buying a Christmas tree. He turns down the police from buying their calendar, and he's kind of just like, "No, we're canceling Christmas this year." And it's kind of just like almost like an HOA nightmare if you've ever lived in like a homeowner's situation where their entire neighborhood's trying. And then at the end of the movie, their daughter comes home to Christmas. They have to scramble to like put their entire house together because she's coming with her boyfriend. He's never celebrated it in America because he's from some country in South America. And then they usually host like the neighborhood Christmas Eve party each year. So overall, it's kind of just a fun Christmas movie. If you're into Tim Allen, like the Santa Claus movies, you'll probably like this one as well. But that was kind of the first icebreaker in the Christmas that I had this year once we put up all our decorations this weekend.
Nice. Yeah. So I haven't got into the holiday spirit quite yet. I haven't really been watching too much. I've been kind of just watching Seinfeld, like kind of casually, because that's just kind of like one of my comfort shows.
It's a good
As
comfort
nerdy,
show.
it's a great comfort show. Other than that, I haven't my music taste. There's this band that I found. It's more of an older group, but I've been listening to the Delegations, which is more of like
Okay.
they're kind of more of like an R&B of the 80s type sound. Maybe more like even like soft rock. But they have some like really smooth, kind of like Marvin Gaye type sounds, and I've been really liking them. It's been nice, like just kind of playing them in the car. Um, Actually, their song "Oh Honey" was on my top 100 songs of my Spotify rap, so that was interesting. But other than that, it hasn't been a lot of watching. Seinfeld, I got to the point in Seinfeld where where Costanza joins the Yankees as their coach, and he's like a special advisor um, to Steinbrenner in it. So it's kind of funny, like seeing, like at that time, the Yankees were like they're basically what the Dodgers are now, or what the Chiefs were a few years ago. So it's kind of fun. One of the things that he does in the show is he's helping, like I think it's like Dave Winfield or whatever, like set up his outfit or whatever, and he's like, "Wait a minute, why is your uniforms in polyester? It should be in cotton." And so he pushes it up to the ladder, just like, "You guys got to have it in cotton. Like it's way more comfortable. You can breathe more." And then ultimately, the Yankees go on like a 10-game losing streak because of it. So it's just like it's just fun. Like Seinfeld's such a stupid, fun show. And it's honestly, I think of like the '90s. It's one of the best sitcoms. I'm on season 6 now. I'm going to finish it eventually, but it's just one of those comfort shows. You just watch it, you laugh, and they have every once in a while they have an episode that's out of left field that you wouldn't expect a show to do. Like the episode I told you about where they like get into a cab from the airport, and it turns out that the people in the cab that it was for were neo-Nazis going to a neo-Nazi rally at Madison Square Garden. So like I don't know, there's just shit like that where things just get really dramatic. And then Costanza at one point gets engaged to somebody, and then she ends up killing herself. So it's just like they just have some really dark humor sometimes. So it's just I don't know. Seinfeld, I would shout out Seinfeld, what I've been watching lately.
Yeah, I feel like Seinfeld's like the OG, like boomer comfort show. Um, I feel like maybe like Andy Griffith, as far as sitcoms, was one of like the OG, like Andy Griffith and Dick Van Dyke. But I feel like Seinfeld is very much inspired by Dick Van Dyke, and they kind of took a lot of those tones. And like, it's not as much of like a family show, but they have a lot of those tones. And then I think Seinfeld like inspired Friends as well. They were like a little bit before Friends. So it's kind
Yeah.
of Jerry Seinfeld was the goat for a little bit as far as TV, right? Because they were like they left. They're one of the only shows that um, finished as the number one show on or the number one sitcom. I think like Andy Griffith did as well. Dick
Hmm.
Van Dyke did.
Yeah. I definitely think Seinfeld's more influential for like yeah, they inspired Friends. I think they inspired like How I Met Your Mother. Um, just more like the structure with like their friends, because it's really just like Elaine, Costanza, Kramer, and Jerry. And honestly, like the worst character in the show is Jerry. I just think it's funny because like all of them are just assholes and pieces of shit more often than not, but they just make for the most absurd plot lines, especially Kramer. So yeah, I definitely think they're influential. And I know that they did quote the Andy Griffith Show as a main influence. Larry David did. So um, it's just interesting. I honestly have grown to love Seinfeld quite a lot. Thanks, Vanessa.
Have you gone and watched the Andy Griffith Show? Because I feel like if you're like into like older shows, like kind of that older comfort show, that would be a show you dig a lot. It's on Peacock if you have it.
I don't have Peacock, but I do. I've watched them like on like the Hallmark Channel a few times. I just like there's just something about like older shows. I don't know why, but like modern shows, it just feels like it's run more by like analytics and like what people should like compared to like those shows are just run by like let's just make funny content. And like Seinfeld is more or less just like observations from Larry David that they just put in the show. Andy Griffith is probably the same, I imagine, but I just like also just like watching a show from a time before mine. I just find more comforting in my mind. I don't know. It's just one of my weird things.
Yeah, puts you in like a time capsule, and like I agree with you too. With like Seinfeld, like is one of those shows that's like 20 episodes per season, and then we like watched Andy Griffith all the way shoot through. You have shows like That 70s Show, and then also Home Improvement, shows like that, where Malcolm in the Middle, where it's like, how do you come up with 20 episode seasons and go for like 8 seasons? Like, that's what we were talking about earlier about like bringing cocaine back into the writer's room, because like
Mhm.
shows today, they just feel very safe, very bland. We can't talk about this, we can't touch these subjects. And it's also just like very glossy. Like there's these weird filter on shows where they're almost trying to make it look like a 90s sitcom, but also you have it with like modern technology, so it just looks weird. And like, so it feels like very regurgitated, very inauthentic. Where now it used to be like 20 episodes per season and it was really funny, and now like you're lucky if a sitcom can pull together like 13 episodes for like a 5 season run that are all funny. Like The Ranch was like 13 episode seasons. Silicon Valley is one of those modern day sitcoms I think is actually good, but they could only, I think their seasons are still only like 10 episodes for a sitcom, which I feel like really isn't that much.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's hard nowadays, especially because in the streaming era, like a lot of these shows are axed before they even can do their full like peak. But what's also cool about like watching like a show like Andy Griffith or Seinfeld is like um you see like dating back then. And for me as a guy who was a bachelor, like watching Jerry and Costanza and like all these people like go on their dates and see like I don't know, just the way like dating was before the internet. It's just kind of fascinating to see like especially in New York like how that was. Again, it's just kind of like it's more like just a comfort for me. Just to kind of watch like what the 90s were. Even though I don't care too much about the 90s, but it's just kind of an interesting time capsule.
Yeah, even watching The Sopranos right now, where it's all like home phones, flip phones. I feel like someone who was born like even 2 or 3 years after me, like I was born in 2000. My first phone that I had when I was 16 was a flip phone. So like I kind of get it. And I'm like, I feel like we're both like kind of stuck in between those generations, where we're in between the generations that were playing outside all the time and then the generations who are just chronically on their phone. So you kind of have like that J. Cole effect where you're kind of in between generations. But like even just watching a show like The Sopranos, it feels still like a very different time. Like I just watched the episode where one of the people, I think they figure out like Vito is gay, and it's like a whole thing the entire episode. It's like the funniest episode where he's in therapy, but he can't wrap his head around it. And like even in that show, they're talking about like they're just shoving all of this stuff down our throat. I'm like, damn, they were saying this back in 2006. Like, fast forward now that we're in 2025, and now we have the Coal Queen by Netflix coming out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, yeah, the changing of time, isn't it just nuts to see like it's only been 20 years since then and all of a sudden like that show would probably never be made and that episode would probably never come out nowadays.
No, definitely not. Like
And
some
that's
of
why we
the
love it.
humor, some of the jokes, and then even like a movie like Predator, like some of the jokes in that just
Yeah.
never get made. I feel like the only show that's really kind of captured that has been Tires, but even Tires was only, you did 6 episodes, then you did 13 episodes. Like it's still not that long of a
Yeah.
season.
Yeah. Another show, like, this is more animation, but like Smiling Friends is the same way, where they only pump out 10 episodes, but it's all 15 minutes long. So it's just like a lot of these, even the shows that are like at the best of the peak of their powers right now, it's 10 episodes, maybe 12 max.
Yeah, which is fine if it's like an epic and it's like an hour long, but I feel like just kind of shows have been like pretty good, but we just haven't had anything that's been exceptional since Game of Thrones. Like Succession was good, but it has its ups and downs.
Yeah, I've been trying to I'm getting back into Succession. I haven't finished season 1 yet, but that is another show that I've watched. But it's those hour longs, which was just tough for me. Seinfeld, I can watch. It doesn't make sense in the grand scheme of things. Like I can watch 4 episodes of Seinfeld, but watching 2 episodes of Succession, it just feels like I'm committing so much more time, even though I'm really not.
Well, it's like when you're reading a book, you're more likely to read a book if it's like 5 to 10 page chapters, but if it's like 20 page chapters, then it feels like much more of a chore where it's like I could read 10 5 page chapters, no problem. But if it's like 2 40 page chapters, it'd be like, oh no.
It's
It's
just a
like kind of
grind.
the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a grind. But yeah, we've been watching. You watched the Krugs, Christmas with the Krugs, and then I've been watching Seinfeld. But we've recapped all of week 14. We've covered week 15. We've given our playoff picture, our best and worst top fives. Make sure to tune in next Tuesday as we cover week 15 and preview week 16 with our Will Anderson jerseys. But without further ado, you guys make sure you always stay brick.
Stay brick.